Happy Wednesday. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Only on WCNC Plus is where you get developing stories, breaking news coverage, extended interviews, live in-studio interviews. We have a busy show as always, but thank you for joining us again, Live Impact News. We're almost there, Carlene. We're almost. I said this early in the morning, but we're halfway. I'm cool with being halfway. Halfway to Friday. I'm cool with that. I told Jane, we have 5 days in the week, and she corrected me. She said 7. I said, no, 5 work days. 5 work days. So we're almost there. All right. A little bit more energy next time, Carly. Okay, there you go. We're starting off with some positive energy here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Again, I'm Nick Sturdivant. Again, we have a busy show, so we don't want to waste any more time. We want to get right to it. So a big story that we've been covering for I want to say weeks, but it's been longer than that. We're talking about the North Carolina Supreme Court race. Jefferson Griffin, the Republican, and the incumbent Democrat Allison Riggs. There are so many twists and turns in this case. A lot to break down. I'm not even going to try to break down what's been happening, what's happening now. That's why we have Julie Kay here in the studio. Thank you for being here, Julie.
Once again, I mean, I'm just here all the time now talking of every single day there is something new in this case, Nick. But today, actually, we've got something that might get us into a direction of an ending.
Okay.
That's the first time we've had a direction towards an ending, maybe this whole time.
Yes.
So the last we talked, Griffin was, of course, challenging 65,000 ballots. That had kind of been pared down to 5,000. Those are the military overseas voters that we were waiting to see. Okay, is it 5,000 that now have to go verify their ballots? That would be 4 counties, or is it just the 1 county? And per the State Board of Elections, late last night, we got the news it is just Guilford County. Those military overseas voters, probably about 1,400 people, now will have to go verify their ballots. The reason for that is because in Griffin's initial complaint, he only mentioned Guilford. He then added on, I believe, Durham, Forsyth, and Buncombe, largely left-leaning counties, but those were kind of added later on in the process. And so the State Board of Elections, per the information they got from the Court of Appeals, that's how they interpreted it. And so that means that it's very unlikely, if it continues to go that direction, and we'll talk about some ways that it could not, If that stands, then it's likely that Allison Riggs will keep her lead. In a left-leaning county like that, 1,400 ballots, even if nobody does anything, he would still need 70 or so % of those votes in his direction, and that's just not likely in a county like Guilford.
It's such a fascinating story because you just don't know. Like, you thought we had an ending at some point, and then it kept going. And honestly, it's still pending litigation. But at this point, from what you said, there could be an end in sight, and
Yes.
it looks like I don't want to speculate, but it looks like it could end up favoring Allison Riggs because of those left-leaning counties, right?
Absolutely. And the fact that it's just the one instead of 5,000 that would need to be verified. If we're just talking 1,400 votes, her lead to begin with was only 700. It would take a lot to lose that at this point with the 1,400 ballots. So, especially in that particular county. Of course, there are things that could still happen. The Court of Appeals could come back and say, never mind, we want to do the other 3 counties as well. And again, they're all left-leaning. Most of them, not most, a majority of them may have voted for Riggs. They still have, from now on, 30 days to go verify, send in a photo ID. Again, these are military voters for the most part, so they do have IDs. It's just a question of whether or not they are going to send them in and take the time to do that. People still have to be notified at this point. That's what's happening this week, today. But yeah, all the sources that I have been speaking to say it's very unlikely, though we still need the court to come down and say it officially, it's very unlikely that Griffin would be able to overturn it at this point.
When could we get a decision? I mean, I know you talked to the sources, but I know folks are just, again, looking for
this to end.
Resolution in this. Yes. Well, when can we get a resolution?
I would say, and it's still, who's to say, really, is the big thing. But 30 days from that notification is when we should have a better idea of whether it's Griffin or Riggs. And that is, again, barring any other intervention from the Court of Appeals, all that kind of stuff. I think then we might have an answer of who wins this particular race. However, I think this general issue is going to go on for a long time. So I believe it was yesterday that Allison Riggs filed with the Federal Court of Appeals, Fourth Circuit District, that she would be going through. And there are multiple other pending litigations from voters, from the League of Women Voters, voter rights groups. So those might continue. Even if Riggs does win and she is certified the winner, those might continue on because now the sources I've been speaking to say this sets a precedent that you can just go back and try to change the rules of an election retroactively. So the litigation is probably going to continue for a long time at the federal level, but that's doesn't mean we won't have an answer here, hopefully in the next month.
I just want to point out, you've been you've been covering the story so much. Have you reached? I'm asking you this, and I know the answer. This is for our viewers' sake. Have you reached out to Riggs? Have you reached out to Griffin? And what have they said so far about? I know this is pending litigation, but what have they said, or have they responded back to you? Because
of the fact that it's pending litigation, we haven't gotten a response from Riggs or Griffin independently. Of course, their teams say, we can't speak on this right now. And I haven't honestly in the last few weeks reached out. We've, of course, towards the beginning, we're trying a little harder. We didn't realize how long this was going to go on. I'm sure they didn't either. Riggs has definitely been more forthcoming with, I know she had a rally earlier this week. Griffin has been quite a bit quieter. So they're not really talking individually to any news sources right now just because the fact that the litigation is ongoing. I do anticipate that Allison Riggs will be more open to interviews and things once this ends, no matter which way it goes. Okay, let's get to another big topic, the budget, North Carolina budget. There's more.
I've been in North Carolina in and out for the better part of 10 years. The budget is always a big sticking point. It takes months and months and months and months to get the budget finalized.
If we get one at all.
Where are we with this year's fiscal budget?
So a couple of weeks ago, Stein made his proposal, and then yesterday, or maybe it was earlier this week, the Senate then gave kind of their rebuttal to that. So the Senate Republicans came out with theirs, and comparing them to Stein's, honestly, there's a lot of similar priorities. Of course, Helene recovery, teacher pay, and our bolstering our schools is a big one, and then tax cuts. Those are the three, I would say, biggest themes in both. They just go about them very differently. Starting with Helene, because I know that's what is top of everyone's mind, Stein's budget didn't necessarily even have money set particularly aside for Helene. He said it was created with Helene in mind. So of course, things like road reconstruction, that kind of stuff would be impacted by his budget, but it wasn't necessarily put in like a Helene box, though he did say he supported more aid packages, which he's pushing another one now. We've already gotten that $524 million passed through the General Assembly. He wants another one already. And then the Senate's, it's a little bit more outlined, more clearly. I have it up here. Yeah, it would have 700 from other state sources that would go into a specific Helene fund.
Okay.
So that's a little bit more concrete. They don't necessarily say exactly what they want to spend that on yet. Of course, recovery efforts are so fluid that the needs changed. It has about $25 million set aside for what they want so far, so that would be sending it to GROW, or the Governor's Recovery Office for Western North Carolina. And then also emergency response to schools, rebolstering the community college system in Western North Carolina, some things like that might fall through the cracks otherwise. But I think we can expect housing reconstruction, road reconstruction, debris removal, the things we've been talking about all along. They also would replenish our rainy day fund to pre-Helene levels. Of course, we've kind of taken a lot from that. Helene was a rainy day for sure.
Yes.
And that would replenish it back to about $1.1 billion. So if there was another natural disaster or they needed to pull more of that for Helene, they could.
And Democrats, Republicans, they seem to agree on Helene recovery, but outside of that, there's
how to do it is a big question. I think the one main thing that everyone seems to agree on is we need more from the federal government, especially after over the weekend when the White House decided not to extend our FEMA situation here in North Carolina. So this is kind of all ties together. That's why Stein was pushing for more federal funding this week, and that's why this budget is so timely.
Julie Kay, ladies and gentlemen, covering all things politics in the newsroom. She does a fantastic job doing that. And she also has lunch at her desk. So I want to make sure you get to lunch. Thank you for the update.
My pita bread.
Before you go, where can folks check you out on TV?
We're going to be on at 4 and 5. 4 with an update on the Supreme Court, and 5 with the budget. That one I'll dive a bit more into teacher pay and what that looks like.
Okay, Julie, enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Julie. Again, Julie Kay there, updating us on the Supreme Court race in North Carolina, also the North Carolina budget. A lot of twists and turns in both situations. So Julie has been doing a great job updating us on and breaking it down, because it can be complicated.
It's been a lengthy ride.
But she does a great job breaking that stuff down. All right, and she mentioned Helene. So Helene, obviously, folks in Western North Carolina continue to recover from the impacts of Helene. Chimney Rock, that town suffered significant damage. Heavily impacted. They're looking to reopen the town soon. I know they did something during the holidays, but again, that town saw, just like many places in Western North Carolina, saw a lot of devastation. Our Jessie Pierre went to the mountains. She spoke with the mayor of Chimney Rock about the recovery efforts from start to where they are now. Let's listen in to that interview she had with the mayor of Chimney Rock.
Perfect. How long have you been the mayor here?
I've been mayor kind of 2 go-rounds, but a total of about 25 years.
And how long have you been in Chimney Rock?
We have lived here since 1990, so 35 years now.
What does Chimney Rock Village mean to you, Chimney Rock in general?
Well, it's my home. It's the home of my kids and my grandkids. It's the place where I started my married life. It's the place where I started my business 33 years ago. So there are a lot of milestones here for me. I moved here to work at Chimney Rock Park when it was privately owned at the time, and moved here for the job, and it was a great job. But then after a couple of years when I left the park, I realized that not only was the job in the park great, but the whole village was great. And I just didn't want to leave. And you hear that over and over from people that live here and people that visit here. It's got a magical draw to it that once you get here, you just want to come back or you want to stay.
You know, when the storm hit, did you think it was going to be this bad? Like, what were you thinking before it hit?
Well, I was actually on vacation. I was at Tybee Island, Georgia when the storm hit. And none of us thought it was going to be this bad. I mean, none of us could have imagined. And a lot of people, in fact, earlier in the week, we thought, you know, we might get some flooding, we might get some high water, but we've been through floods before. We had a 100-year flood in 1996, what we thought was a 100-year flood, not realizing that on that September morning that we were going to be hit with a 1,000-year flood, just something that honestly none of us could have imagined.
You know, talk to me about the devastation here and looking at it and watching it and seeing it when you first.
Well, it's when I saw pictures. I was out of town and I started, of course, communicating with the fire department and the other officials here in town. And I saw the pictures, I saw the videos, but then coming into town and seeing it firsthand, it was so dramatic and so unbelievable that it was hard to imagine that it had actually happened. Even though I'm seeing it firsthand, I'm thinking still that this cannot be real. You know, surely there's something that I'm missing that's going to make this not be as bad as it is. But of course, when you dig into it, you realize, you know, we've been dealt a tremendous blow, a devastating blow.
And kind of break down, like, I don't know if you have, what are the estimates of, like, houses and, you know, talk to me about some of the damage that.
Well, the damage was, it was truly catastrophic for Chimney Rock Village, and I compare it sometimes. It's an odd situation though, because you can literally go 2 or 3 miles away, and everybody's totally recovered from the storm, and you can't even tell a storm happened. But then you come down here and you see this devastation that we're still trying to rebuild from and overcome. But we had 4 vehicle bridges and 1 pedestrian bridge in town that were all washed away. We had 30% of our business community literally wash away. We had our biggest employer, biggest draw, Chimney Rock Park, be completely closed. We have the whole town completely closed, and we have been since the storm for 6 months now. So we've had 100% unemployment. Over 30 homes washed away, just numerous vehicles, campers from the campgrounds, camping cabins. It's just, you know, when you start going through the numbers, it's mind-boggling. And part of the problem too is, like I said, we've been shut down and out of business since the storm, and we are still out of business. And that's something we hope to rectify very soon. But you know, we've got to get going again so we can start returning to normal.
You know, when we're talking about, like, the work that's being done, like, you know, I see everywhere volunteers working and coming and so forth. Talk to me about how that has helped and to, you know, even put you where you are today. And kind of talk to me about the progress. Well,
the progress, it's an interesting story because it's a tale of 2 projects, if you will, in the sense that when we look around, we still see just tremendous damage and realize it's going to take a long time to build it back. But at the same time, we've made tremendous progress, and that is very encouraging. It's very heartwarming. It keeps us all going to see the number of volunteers and the number of people that have reached out to help us. We've had, since the storm, well over 2,000 volunteers come through the Spokes of Hope organization that is organizing the volunteers. We've had just tons of supplies donated. You know, all of the building material that's going into rebuilding these stores has been donated up to this point, and it's just been a tremendous recovery story that is ongoing. And I have to just shout out to Spokes of Hope. They have done such a tremendous job, and we are so blessed, because if they hadn't shown up and started to rebuild us and continued to rebuild us, we would be in a totally different boat now. Chimney Rock's future would be very uncertain. And as it is, with their help and the help of so many other volunteers, our future, while it's still a work in progress, it's much, much brighter than it could have been.
Now, your business is down this street as well, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So now, is it even open? Can you even get in there?
No businesses are open at this point because.
I meant open the door. Like, is it?
Oh yeah, no, we can get in.
Okay.
All all of the businesses are being rebuilt.
Now,
And-
talk to me about the damage in your business specifically.
Right. And I will say this, pretty much 100% of the businesses in town were damaged to some degree. And our business, Bubba O'Leary's General Store, the business I've run for 33 years, part of it, one of the buildings was completely destroyed and we had to tear it down, and the other building was heavily damaged, but it is being repaired. And we hope to have that open early summer. That's our goal, is to have the village to the point where we can allow businesses to reopen in sometime in the early summer.
And I know you mentioned it already, but what would that mean for Chimney Rock Village to start seeing some foot traffic and?
You know, to get the village open again and to get Chimney Rock Park open again is a small step, but at the same time, it's such a vital step for the recovery of this village. Everybody here is a small business. None of us have corporate backing or corporate money. We're just struggling to survive year after year. And to be open, to allow people to come through our doors and to sell them merchandise or serve them a meal, you know, that's going to mean the world to these businesses, and that's going to be that first major step really on our road to recovery. That's a pretty strong wind all of a sudden.
I just hope that this has been high enough. Oh, I made it worse.
Uh-oh.
There we go. You know, when it comes to, so when we're talking about the work that's been done, you know, you said some of the businesses they've been re-gutted and rebuilding work is being done there. Kind of talk to me about some other stuff that's being done.
Well, the business community is being rebuilt by the volunteers, and then the main infrastructure as far as water and sewer and roads, we are using a contractor and state money to rebuild the sewer system and the water system, and then the highway system and the bridges are being rebuilt by North Carolina DOT. And all of those groups, every group involved in this recovery, has been doing just an amazing job. I mean, I can't say enough about DOT's efforts and our contractor on the water and sewer. They are amazing how they came in and just hit the ground running, and they have been working so efficiently, so quickly to get us back up, and it is amazing to see. But I also have to say, as soon as I say that they've done such remarkable work, it's just such a huge project. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to take years and years for all of this to be finished.
And that's what I was going to ask. Okay, so even though you'll be your goal is to open to some level, and I don't know what percentage of it in the summer, but really when we're talking about Chimney Rock Village being completely back, years and years?
Well, yes, it's going to take years and years for us to get back, but I want to encourage people to continue to support us and continue to visit. I mean, we don't need thousands of people every day, but we do need people to remember us and to come back. And I actually think it's going to be extremely interesting to see how we rebuild and to see the milestones along the way and to see different parts of the village come back. And I would encourage people just to keep checking in with us and just keep visiting, and you're going to be amazed at what you see. We've got a task force that's coming up with some truly incredible plans for this village. The old Chimney Rock is gone, but the new Chimney Rock that we're going to rebuild, it's going to be an amazing place, and it's going to have some features that are going to make it even more special than it was before. And we firmly believe that, and we're working as hard as we can to make that happen. So I just encourage people to, put us on your regular visitation list and say, you know what, let's go check and see what's going on in Chimney Rock, because you're going to really enjoy the journey, and we hope to make that journey with a lot of people.
Two questions. When it comes to the biggest challenges, what would you say as far as rebuilding and just kind of these efforts?
The biggest challenge facing us, I think, in my opinion, is just the biggest challenge is going to be keeping the momentum going. because this is a multi-year process. It's a huge job that's going to take a lot of input, a lot of resources, a lot of effort by a lot of people. And it's going to be a challenge for all of us to keep that momentum going and to keep our enthusiasm up and to keep our energy levels up. And it's going to take a lot of effort on other people's parts to remain committed and to remain interested in the rebuilding of Chimney Rock. And I think that's going to be the hardest thing, is making sure that all of us work together towards making this long-term project come through.
Now, I saw an article that we shared about how the extension for our FEMA extension was declined or something like that. How does that impact you guys, and any concerns there about, you know?
Well, I can't speak necessarily to specific issues, but just because I'm not as well versed in them. I do know that there was a matching part of the FEMA funding that I believe it was 100% match at one point, and it's gone to either a 90-10 or 80-20 match. And that's very difficult, particularly for small communities like ourselves that don't have the resources to come up with 10 or 20% of the cost of a multi-million-dollar project. And we don't have the resources, and we've lost so much tax base that we can't raise that money now. So it's very important for us to get 100% funding on a lot of these projects just to make them work and to get us back to where we can potentially match in the future.
I see. So the okay. Perfect. Anything else you'd like to add, or you think that I'm missing?
No, I just want to say thank you to so many people that have helped us, and thank you to everybody out there that's looking at this and thinking of Chimney Rock, because we need all of it. We need your support, but we need your prayers and thoughts. And when you get a chance, come and visit us and share your enthusiasm for the new Chimney Rock with us.
And that was Jess Pierre's full one-on-one with the mayor of Chimney Rock. Again, that area, just like a lot of areas in western North Carolina, devastated by Hurricane Helene. They're working to recover, bounce back. I'm sure they will. A beautiful area. If you go up there and visit, again, is set to reopen soon. All right, we want to shift gears to Raleigh, to our state capital, North Carolina state capital. Moms and advocacy groups rallied this morning at the North Carolina State Capitol to call on state lawmakers, to reject a proposal for new concealed carry laws. Currently, to legally carry a concealed gun in North Carolina, people need to be 21 years old or older and obtain a permit by passing a background check, paying an $80 fee, and passing tests to prove they can shoot and that they understand the relevant laws on gun possession and self-defense. So again, Moms Demand Action and other groups met this morning in downtown Raleigh. About 100 people attended this rally to urge lawmakers to block that bill that I just discussed. So yeah, I just wanted to paint the scene for you as far as the overall issue, and what you're about to look at is that press conference just getting underway when we start rolling on it. So let's listen into that press conference, that rally that happened earlier this morning in downtown Raleigh.
Permitless carry is a direct threat to public safety. Veterans and law enforcement also agree. Responsible gun owners support our existing permitting system because it keeps them, just like every North Carolinian, safe. Permitless carry will only make it easier for people with dangerous criminal histories to get their hands on a gun. It eliminates all safeguards that keep our communities safe. I promise we will not stop fighting until we can all live free of gun violence. And again, thank you so much for being here with me today and for being in this fight with us. We have an incredible lineup of speakers that you will hear from today. So with that, it is my great honor to introduce the Executive Director of Moms Demand Action, Angela Farrell-Zabala.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Angela Farrell-Zabala, and I serve as the Executive Director of Moms Demand Action. And together with Students Demand Action in Every Town for Gun Safety, we serve as the largest grassroots organization in America fighting to end gun violence. I'm so grateful to our legislative champions that are here with us today, and I'm so excited to be surrounded by so many incredible volunteers, survivors, students, and partners. We're going to spend today talking about what we need to solve this crisis, which is the #1 killer of kids in this country. I also want to take a second to talk about why we're here. In an average year, over 1,700 North Carolinians will die because of gun violence. Each of those lives, each and every one, was an entire world stolen. And it means a lifelong of grief for their loved ones. For some of us, this kind of grief is unimaginable. But for others, including many here today, it's their daily reality. We can't keep living like this, y'all. We need our lawmakers to wake up and show up for us. And that's exactly what we're going to make clear today. Because we can't afford to take no for an answer. And I want to be very clear. Very clear. Our fight isn't against the Second Amendment. I am sick and tired of hearing this, y'all. Sick and tired of hearing this. In fact, our movement includes so many gun owners, many of them survivors, who are advocating right alongside us. This is about common sense. Our kids are being shot and killed. No matter where you stand politically, none of us can be okay with that. That is our common ground, and so that's where we should start. If we all face that reality, we can actually focus on making our communities safer instead of trying to get rid of the solutions we know are saving lives. That starts with rejecting the reckless push to allow permitless carry in North Carolina. Do you really know what happens when you get rid of a permitting system? When states roll back simple things like background checks and basic training, y'all? Gun violence goes up. That's simple. Preventable tragedies strike and communities grieve. Imagine you're at a grocery store, or your kid's soccer game, or at your church. And those around you could be carrying guns with no training on how to use them responsibly and no check to ensure that they should have those guns in the first place. We're talking about people as young as 18, y'all, without any vetting, concealing a deadly weapon. Any person with common sense can see this isn't going to make North Carolina safer, which is probably why the overwhelming majority of voters here want to keep North Carolina's permitting system. They want to keep it. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican, gun owner or not. Nobody wants this invitation for tragedy in their community. So despite what our opposition might want lawmakers to believe, this stuff isn't controversial, y'all. They have a simple choice to make. Legislate on behalf of people that they represent, on behalf of common sense, on behalf of common safety, or cower to the gun lobby and put lives at stake. I know that our political climate is changing in the White House and across this country, states across this country, and extremists everywhere are hoping that we stay home while they push their agendas. But 12 years in, we know how to do the work. We know how to win, and we're not going to let up. We are the ones in touch with the American people, not our opposition. So now is not the time to retreat. It's the time to get more creative, more strategic, and more relentless. No matter what you do, just know there's always ground to gain. It takes time to create the type of change our movement is fighting for, and it might be slow and incremental and certainly not linear. That's why we need to keep on fighting until we can all learn, play, shop, pray, and simply exist without the constant threat of gun violence. We aren't letting up. Now, change like this takes leaders, real leaders who refuse to back down. So it is now leaders who will listen to these five. Where are those petitions, y'all? You got petitions here for me? We've got 5,000, you bring them, 5,600. We got 5,654 signatures and counting that y'all have collected to stop permitless carry. This is bad. And it's my honor To introduce one of those leaders now, House Democratic Leader Robert Reeves. Come on up, Robert Reeves. Thank you so much for your leadership. I appreciate you.
And good afternoon, and thank you for being here. My name is Robert Reeves, District 54, Chatham and Randolph County, also House Democratic Leader. And these petitions that you see here are only a fraction of the North Carolinians who feel the same way that we feel here today. Most North Carolinians oppose making it easier for nearly anyone to carry a concealed handgun without a permit or classes. Everyone within the borders of this state deserves to feel and be safe in their communities, but this legislation would do exactly the opposite. Over 80% of people polled said that high safety standards should be a key component of concealed carry permits. This law would do away with that. We know that common sense gun violence protection is the way to go and is what the majority of North Carolinians expect from their elected leaders. This is an extreme policy that would lead to more preventable gun deaths in our state. This General Assembly has consistently loosened gun laws to the point where it's becoming far less safe to live, work, and play in our state. People want to feel safe when they go to work. They want to feel safe when they go to school. They want to feel safe when they go shop. They want the ability to just live their lives. But this policy is exactly the type of thing that will make our communities more dangerous places to exist. And along with me, as you see, we have many other people here, and we also have somebody very special here today in Sheriff Burkhead, who deals with this problem each and every day. A law enforcement veteran who has been doing this most of his professional life, who can tell you exactly what this law does. So Sheriff Burkhead, come on up.
Good morning. I'm Clarence Burkhead, the Sheriff of Durham County, and truly an honor to be here with you this morning. Certainly an honor to stand with Students Demand Action and certainly Moms Demand Action. This is not my first time. This will not be my last time. I've been standing here for the better part of the last 7 years as I was elected in 2018. And we come back with the same message every year: common sense. Common sense gun legislation, responsible gun ownership. The two bills that are highlighted here today are the exact opposite of that. I really appreciate Angela and Moms Demand Action for having me back and for the work that they're doing. Please, keep up the fight. Don't stop. I've supported common sense legislation as sheriff again since I was elected in 2018. These bills are not common sense. Day in and day out, the deputies in Durham County encounter weapons. Last year alone, we seized over 300 weapons, most of them unsecured, either had been stolen or left unsecure in their car. That's not responsible, that's not common sense. It's already been said that the majority of people in North Carolina support a permit. They support training. And without training, without the permit, this is a potential to increase and damage public safety, increase violence in our communities. In Durham alone, like I said, we seized over 300 weapons last year. Look, here's some key points I want to make about these bills. Permitless carry will increase the likelihood of accidental shootings, suicides, violence, and is a risk to public safety. You're putting weapons in the hands of 18-year-olds who are untrained and are not mature enough to understand their consequences. Now, I can say that because I've raised 3 kids. Most of them, all 3 of them now are over the age of 18, so I'm a little more comfortable. But at 18, I cannot imagine putting a weapon in their hands. This is an increased risk to law enforcement. A lot of my colleagues across the state are concerned about permitless carry, concealed carry, because now everyone we encounter will be treated as if they are armed. That could increase potential tragic encounters between law enforcement and the public. There's a lack of screening. It's already been mentioned. No background checks, no mental health checks, there's no mental health assessment. Again, this is not responsible, and North Carolinians need to continue to push back. When you put a weapon in the hands of someone who has a mental health issue or a propensity to violence, whether it be domestic violence or just violence in general, this is a threat to public safety, because now we could end up with individuals taking the law in their own hands, thinking they have a right to defend themselves if they see something that offends them or see something that they don't like or they perceive to be a threat. But again, they're not trained to make that decision. The lack of a national standard is also concerning. In this bill, I've heard reciprocity. Every state is different. Their laws are different. So how are we going to ensure reciprocity for those in North Carolina going permitless carry? It's already been mentioned that the public opinion highly support the permit process. They highly support what was taken out of the hands of sheriffs 3 years ago to come in and issue a permit, to go through the background check, let the sheriffs of North Carolina do what they've been doing for generations, is making sure you can responsibly own and handle a firearm. Well, that's been taken away. In closing, I'd like to say we need these voices of reason to continue to be loud and get louder. We're gathered here today, and it's my honor to stand with Students Demand Action and Moms Demand Action. We have much work to do to stop these reckless, I'm going to use that term, these reckless pieces of legislation that indeed are a threat to public safety. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Reverend Rashi. Come forward.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
We are here on this beautiful spring morning. We are here at the Capitol to make sure our lawmakers hear us when we say we do not want permitless carry in North Carolina. Instead of using this session to promote responsible gun ownership, some lawmakers are trying to push dangerous legislation that would let people as young as 18 carry a concealed gun in public without a background check or safety training. We urge our lawmakers to join us in supporting safer communities and to vote no on permitless carry. Almost 10 years ago, on June 17, 2015, a young white supremacist walked into a Bible study at Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina, with a gun and murdered 9 people, which included my beloved mother, Mrs. Ethel Lance, 2 of my cousins, and a dear childhood friend. I want you to know firsthand the unbearable grief of losing loved ones to gun violence. I've seen the consequences when a weapon ends up in the wrong hands. Lives are shattered. Communities are changed forever. We need our lawmakers to pass laws that will prevent future tragedies like the one that devastated my family and communities, and not to invite new ones. As a woman of great faith, just like many of you here today, I want our lawmakers to learn from past mistakes. In 2023, lawmakers repealed North Carolina's handgun purchase permit, despite widespread opposition. The following year, North Carolina had 27 mass shootings. Now, our lawmakers are considering weakening gun laws further, even though doing so is likely to result in an increase in gun violence. We, all of us, we cannot let this happen. No matter your background, we all can agree that there is a gun violence crisis in our state. As a member of the faith community, it is crucial that we talk about gun safety by emphasizing the sanctity of life. Faith leaders know what gun safety and responsible gun ownership are critical to protecting their communities and valuing human life. As faith leaders, we see the toll gun violence has on our community. We console survivors and try to help them make sense of the devastation. I know the pain of gun violence, both as a faith leader and as a survivor. And I'm begging lawmakers to prioritize community safety. Instead of making it easy to carry hidden loaded guns without safety or background checks, they should focus on passing common sense gun safety laws like secure storage, which has proven to save lives. Lastly, I encourage each and every one of you to keep advocating for sensible gun laws. Sign petitions, write letters, meet with your representative, and know that I and my fellow faith leaders stand with you in this fight. Thank you.
My name is Gerald Givens Jr. I'm a father, a grandfather, a retired United States Air Force veteran, and someone who has lived through what far too many families in this state have endured: the devastating loss of loved ones to gun violence. 8 members of my family are no longer here because of a bullet. And I'll never forget the phone calls, the screams, the silence that follows after someone you love is taken too soon. Each time I've had to sit with that grief and wonder if our leaders are listening. That's why we're here today, because we are listening. We're listening to the people, to the survivors, to the parents afraid to send their children to school, and to the communities that know safety shouldn't be a privilege. It should be a promise. Yet instead of honoring that promise, some lawmakers are pushing legislation that would allow anyone as young as 18 to carry a hidden, loaded gun in public, no permit, no background check, no training. That's not responsible, that's dangerous. When I served in the Air Force, I wasn't handed a weapon just because I wore a uniform. I had to prove that I could carry it safely with discipline and with training. That wasn't negotiable. It was a standard because that depended on saving lives. We should expect no less from civilians walking into our grocery stores, our churches, our parks, our schools with concealed weapons. This isn't about politics, it's about people. Yes. People like the mother I held after her son was shot in front of her home. People like the kids that are a part of our program who flinch at fireworks because they've heard too many gunshots. People who are begging for peace, not more fear. I believe in responsible gun ownership, but permitless carry isn't about responsibility. It's about removing the guardrails of safety. Yeah. Yep. So I'm asking all lawmakers to do what's right, not what's easy, not what the gun lobby demands, but what your constituents, your neighbors, what we are pleading for. Say no to permitless carry and say yes to protecting life. What do we demand? Action! What do we demand? Action! What do we demand? Action! At this time,
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Right there on your screen was a rally from earlier today in downtown Raleigh, outside of the North Carolina State Capitol. Moms Demand Action and other advocacy groups and community members rallying against changes to gun laws here in North Carolina. To be specific, they're calling on lawmakers to reject a proposal for new concealed carry laws. All right, we'll shift gears now. We want to get you to another story that we've been following. Our Tradisha Woodard brought us an update last night to a story, a very emotional interview that we're about to play, but let me set it up for you. The man accused of causing a violent crash where a 22-year-old died will remain behind bars. Gary Lackey Jr. was denied bond yesterday after being involved in a wreck where Dawson Oliver died back in February. But records show that this wasn't Lackey's first run-in with the law. Now, WCNC Charlotte's Tradisha Woodard spoke with Dawson Oliver's mother in an emotional interview. Let's listen in.
Yep. So talk to me a little bit about thoughts. You know, this is the first court appearance. You know, you were a little concerned about him getting bond and getting back out on the streets. Talk to me a little bit about how you're feeling right now.
I'm a little bit relieved because he didn't get bond, because I really didn't want him out there to kill someone else's kid.
Why was it so important for you guys to drive down here?
It's our son.
It's our son. We have to fight for our son. Nobody cares about our son as much as we do.
How long was the drive?
It's about 5 hours because the gorge got washed out with the hurricane. So it takes about 5 hours to get here now. It used to take like 4.
When you look at just extensive criminal history, right, and just thought
Sorry about that. We have some technical issues with that interview. Again, that's Dawson Oliver's mother speaking yesterday after Gary Lackey Jr. was denied bond yesterday after being involved in a wreck where Dawson Oliver died back in February. We're trying to get you back to that interview in a second. I do want to tease that we have an NFL draft special coming up soon. It's coming on draft day, Thursday. Remind me of the day because I don't have the flyer on me. 24. Thank you. At 7 p.m., Daniel Stein, sports director Nick Carboni here with expert analysis. They're going to have live interviews. It's at Bank of America Stadium. I'm excited for this. I joke with Carlene that I might even pull up to the stadium. Y'all don't know about this, but I might, just to say, hey, I might. I'm a big Panthers fan. I kind of want to weigh in myself on what the Panthers might do with the 8th pick. We might go defensive lineman. We need to do defense, but projections. But, hey, there are things floated out there that I saw, maybe wide receiver. Anyway, this is a good foundational step for the Panthers in their next step. Bryce Young played well last year, towards the end of last year. So we'll see. But, again, you don't want to miss this, only on WCNC Plus, where you get that draft special here. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it. So, I'm not going to pull up. I thought about it. I'm not going to pull up. But I think you guys should watch it, tune in. And it's going to be a great time. I'm looking forward to that expert analysis and hearing from, I believe we're going to hear from Dan Morgan, the GM of the Panthers. There it is. We're working. Here it is. NFL Draft Special with Locked On Thursday, April 24th, 7 p.m. I don't know why I wanted to say the 19th. Maybe it's just I'm excited for the draft. And maybe
You want it sooner.
yeah, maybe I want it sooner. That's what it is. That's what it is. But it's the 24th.
You want it now.
I want the draft to happen now. But look, folks, you don't want to miss a special. It's going to be pretty cool. So, yeah, there you go. All right, so we want to shift our attention now to a news conference that happened earlier this morning as well. The nation's top health agency will undertake a massive testing and research effort to determine the cause of autism. So Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. spoke to that today. So let's listen in to his news conference from earlier.
I'm going to go over some of the key numbers from the ADDM report. Overall, the autism is increasing in prevalence at an alarming rate. The study tests 8-year-olds who were born in 2014. And by the way, these studies are 2 years later than they should be. And one of the things that we're going to do as we remove this function, the Administration for a Healthy America to the Chronic Disease Division, the new Chronic Disease Division, is we are going to have updated real-time data so that people can look at this, so Americans can understand what is happening with chronic disease in this country in real time, and not have to wait 2 years to react. We don't wait 2 years to react to a measles epidemic, and we should not, or any kind of infectious disease. We shouldn't have to do that for diabetes or autism. The ASD prevalence rate in 8-year-olds is now 1 in 31. Shocking. There's an extreme risk for boys. Overall, the risk for boys of getting an autism diagnosis in this country is now 1 in 20. And is high in California, which has the best data collection. So it probably also reflects the national trend, 1 in 12.5 boys. This is part of an unrelenting upward trend. The prevalence 2 years ago was 1 in 36. Since the first ADDM report in 1990, which was 1992 births, autism has increased by a factor of 4.8. That's 480%, I believe. The first ADDM survey was 22 years ago when prevalence was 1 in 150 children. In all the core states, the trend is consistently upward, and most cases now are severe. So about 25% of the kids who are diagnosed with autism are nonverbal, non-toilet trained, and have other stereotypical features, head banging, tactile and light sensitivities, stimming, toe walking, etc. One of the things that I think that we need to move away from today is this ideology that the autism diagnosis, that the autism prevalence increases, the relentless increases, are simply artifacts of better diagnoses, better recognition, or changing diagnostic criteria. If you look at Table 3 of the ADDM report, it's clear that the rates are real, that they are increasing in the last 10 years, which is the beginning with the first one. Year by year, there is a steady, relentless increase. I want to, because this epidemic denial has become a feature in the mainstream media, and it's based on an industry canard. And obviously, there are people who don't want us to look at environmental exposures. And so I want to just read you some of a little excerpts from some of the older studies. The baseline for autism in this country was established with the largest epidemiological study in history, a study of all 900,000 children in the state of Wisconsin, children under the age of 12. They found 0.7 children had autism in every 10,000. That's less than 1 in 10,000. Today, we're at 1 in 31. That study also confirmed the 4-to-1 male-to-female ratio. There were at that time just over 60 children in Wisconsin with autism, and today it's around 20,000. In 1987, there was another exhaustive study, a peer-reviewed study in North Dakota, set out to count every child in the state with a pervasive developmental disorder, including autism. That study meticulously combed through every record, every diagnosis, and even conducted in-person assessments of the entire population of 180,000 children under 18. The autism rate they found was 3.3 per 10,000, so that's in line with the 1 in 10,000 that was found in Wisconsin 17 years earlier. For context, today the last number of 1 in 36 is 83 times higher. In 1987, out of every 1 million kids, 330 were diagnosed with autism. Today, there are 27,777 for every million. If you accept the epidemic denier's narrative, you have to believe that researchers in North Dakota missed 98.8% of the children with autism, that thousands of profoundly disabled children were somehow invisible to doctors, teachers, parents, and even their own study. The same researchers who followed the original cohort for 12 years to double-check their number, they went back in 2000 and found that they had missed exactly 1 child. So doctors and therapists in the past were not stupid. They weren't missing all these cases. The epidemic is real. Between 1959 and 1965, researchers from 14 hospitals associated with major universities undertook the National Collaborative Perinatal Project, tracking 30,000 children from birth to age 8. This was no half-baked survey-based analysis. The study conducted 9 separate screenings covering neurology, psychology, speech, language, hearing, and visual function. Every developmental quirk, anomaly, and disorder was logged with painstaking detail. Autism, a condition characterized by profound impairments in social communication and behavior, would have stood out like a neon sign. There were 14 cases. That's 4.7 per 10,000. So we know what the historic numbers are, and we know what the numbers are today, and it's time for everybody to stop attributing this to this ideology of epidemic denial. In 2009, the California State Legislature charged the Mind Institute at UC Davis because this myth was already becoming pervasive, the myth of epidemic denial was already becoming pervasive in the mainstream media. The California legislature directed the Mind Institute at UC Davis to answer the question. And Irva Hertz-Pichota was a highly esteemed, revered scientist, neurology, and epidemiologist, came back with a definitive answer: the epidemic is real. Only a very, very small portion of it can be changed to can be charged to better recognition or better diagnostic criteria. I want to say a couple of other things. There are many, many other studies that affirm this, and instead of listening to this canard of epidemic denial, all you have to do is start reading a little science, because the answer is very clear. And this is catastrophic for our country. There's a recent study by Blaxell et al. And a team of other researchers that said that the cost of treating autism in this country by 2035, so within 10 years, will be $1 trillion a year. This is added to already astronomical healthcare costs. And then there's an individual injury. These are kids this is a preventable disease. We know it's an environmental exposure. It has to be. Genes do not cause epidemics. They can provide a vulnerability. You need an environmental toxin. And Irva Hertz-Pichota pointed out that because of this mythology, that the amount of money and resources put into studying genetic causes, which is a dead end, has been historically 10 to 20 times the amount spent by NIH and other agencies to study environmental factors, to study exposures, to study external factors, and that's where we're going to find the answer. This is an individual tragedy as well. Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children, and we need to put an end to it. And I think I'm going to have Walter Zaharodny, who is the most senior researcher for this project for ADDM, and who's been doing this for many years, to come up and say a little.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. I'm here as a long-term autism researcher and a clinical psychologist. I get to wear two hats, one with patients and families, trying to help them get to a diagnosis and to interventions and treatments, but also for the last 20-plus years.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. There is a news conference from earlier where RFK pledges to find a cause to autism by this fall. That was the announcement he made this morning at a news conference. We want to shift over to another event, live event that's happening right now. Right there on your screen, that's Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell at the Chicago Economic Club. And he's delivering remarks on the economic outlook at the Economic Club of Chicago. Let's take a listen in.
And for the most part, point to continued slowing, but still positive growth. We are closely tracking incoming data as households and businesses continue to digest these developments. In the labor market, during the first 3 months of this year, non-farm payrolls grew by an average of 150,000 jobs per month. While job growth has slowed relative to last year, the combination of low layoffs and lower labor force growth has kept the unemployment rate in a low and stable range. Meanwhile, the ratio of job openings to unemployed job seekers has remained just above 1, near its pre-pandemic level. Wage growth has continued to moderate while still outpacing inflation. Overall, the labor market appears to be in solid condition and broadly in balance, and is not a significant source of inflationary pressure. As for our price stability mandate, inflation has significantly eased from its pandemic highs of mid-2022 without the kind of painful rise in unemployment that has frequently accompanied efforts to bring down high inflation. Progress on inflation continues at a gradual pace, and recent readings remain above our 2% objective. Estimates based on the most recent data from last week show that total headline PCE prices rose 2.3% over the 12 months ending in March, and that excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core prices rose 2.6%. Looking forward, the new administration is in the process of implementing substantial policy changes in 4 distinct areas: trade, immigration, fiscal policy, and regulation. These policies are still evolving, and their effects on the economy remain highly uncertain. As we learn more, we will continue to update our assessment. The level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth. Both survey and market-based measures of near-term inflation expectations have moved up significantly, with survey participants pointing to tariffs. Survey measures of longer-term inflation expectations, for the most part, appear to remain well anchored as well. Market-based break-evens continue to run close to 2%. So, as we gain a better understanding of the policy changes, we'll have a better sense of the implications for the economy and hence for monetary policy. Tariffs are highly likely to generate at least a temporary rise in inflation. The inflationary effects could also be more persistent. Avoiding that outcome will depend on the size of the effects, on how long it takes for them to pass through fully to prices, and ultimately on keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our obligation is to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored, and to make certain that a one-time increase in the price level does not become an ongoing inflation problem. As we act to meet that obligation, we will balance our maximum employment and price stability mandates, keeping in mind that without price stability, we cannot achieve the long periods of strong labor market conditions that benefit all Americans. We may find ourselves in the challenging scenario in which our dual mandate goals are in tension. If that were to occur, we would consider how far the economy is from each goal and the potentially different time horizons over which those respective gaps would be anticipated to close. As that great Chicagoan Ferris Bueller once noted, life moves pretty fast. For the time being, we are well positioned to wait for greater clarity before considering any adjustments to our policy stance. We continue to analyze the incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. We understand that elevated levels of unemployment or inflation can be damaging and painful for communities, families, and businesses. We will continue to do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you, and I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you very much, Chair Powell, for those remarks. I look forward to your elaborating on them in the course of the next 40 minutes or so. I understand last time you were here, Melody Hobson interviewed you. Well, I'm a poor, but I'll try and compensate in the quality of the questions. As you repeatedly emphasize, communication and transparency are very important for the Fed. I would like to get more from you on some of what you just said. As a former central banker, the only sort of caution I've been given by the Economic Club is to not lapse into central bank speak. So I'll try my best not to do that. Let me start by saying you've guided the Fed through some really difficult events, including the pandemic, the dash for cash in March 2020, the great inflation, the banking crisis centered around Silicon Valley Bank. And then over the course of the last year, we've seen a growing possibility of a Fed-engineered soft landing. And now it seems like everything has changed. In the course of a couple of months, JP Morgan has shifted to estimating the probability of a recession this year at around 60%. What do you think about all this?
Well, first of all, thank you for being here today. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Actually, the appearance I did here was my very first appearance as chair 7.5 years ago, so it's great to be back. And I would agree with you that it's been an eventful 7 years, putting it mildly. I keep waiting for the 3 months of calm, that never comes. But to your question, I guess to set the stage, let's look back at 2024. 2024 was a year where the economy grew 2.4%. Unemployment remained in the low 4s, close to mainstream estimates of maximum employment, and inflation came down and was running at the end of the year around 2.5%. That's the economy that we had, and I won't decide how to characterize that, but that's where things were. Where we are now, again to your question, is the administration is, as I mentioned in my remarks, is implementing significant policy changes, and particularly trade now is the focus. And the effects of that are likely to move us away from our goals. So unemployment is likely to go up as the economy slows in all likelihood, and inflation is likely to go up as tariffs find their way, and some part of those tariffs come to be paid by the public. So that's the strong likelihood, and my hope is that we'll get through this and get back. Well, we're always going to be aiming for maximum employment and price stability. That's what we do. I do think we'll be moving away from those goals probably for the balance of this year, and then, or at least not making any progress, and then we'll resume that progress as we can.
Let's talk a little more about tariffs. I mean, you recognize that some of the effects of the tariffs will be.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right there, you're watching live as Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell delivers remarks, and it looks like a town hall forum type of deal going on right there on your screen at the Chicago Economic Club. He was talking about the economic outlook for the country. On your top right screen is a news conference that's underway. California Governor Gavin Newsom and California Attorney General Rob Bonta today filing a lawsuit in federal court challenging President Trump's use of emergency powers to enact broad sweeping tariffs. Let's send you there now.
The last thing we need is more uncertainty and not knowing whether we can ride this one out. With that, I'd like to thank Governor Newsom for being here today, and I would like to introduce Chris Murphy from Sierra Pacific Warehouse Group.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, for being here. Hi, Chris Murphy, Sierra Pacific Warehouse Group. I'm the CEO. We are a family business, Central California, our third generation, with our fourth just recently born. California is a crucial part and the lifeline of our national supply chain. It involves so many suppliers, manufacturers, countries from all around the world and domestically here. Our dynamic food industry gives us a unique role in feeding America. Many of our customers supply across the United States, blending imports along with domestic products to feed the world and the United States, supply chains, retailers. These same local producers export to strategic markets around the world. The supply chain and our customers, they rely on dependable and trustworthy long-term partners. And we need to be a reliable and trustworthy trading partner with the rest of the world. So I think we all work together. The supply chain's interconnected. There's so many moving parts, and it's something that we all should rally around. So thank you, and I'd like to introduce Attorney General Rob Bonta. Thanks.
Thank you all for being here and taking the trip. I want to thank Christine and Chris for sharing their stories and speaking up about the impact on their businesses and California businesses generally. Rob Bonta, California Attorney General. And we're here because President Trump's rogue and erratic tariffs are wreaking havoc on our nation's financial systems and causing uniquely immense harm to California's economy, the fifth largest economy in the world and a major driver of our national economy. Together with Governor Newsom, I'm filing our 14th lawsuit against the president in less than 14 weeks. This one challenging the tariffs he unlawfully imposed under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. We're asking the court to rein in the president, restore to our economy, and uphold the Constitution. The president is yet again acting as if he's above the law. He isn't. He is yet again violating the U.S. Constitution, overriding Congress's authority, and breaching the separation of powers. It's simple. Trump does not have the authority to impose these tariffs. He must be stopped. Before I get into the nitty-gritty, I want to express my great appreciation to Governor Newsom and his team for their leadership on this issue and many issues, and their partnership and collaboration with us on this case. We're proud to work with them, as always. And I want to recognize my team at the Department of Justice, especially the individuals in the government law section who worked tirelessly to make this lawsuit possible. It's an honor to work alongside so many dedicated public servants, both at the DOJ and in the governor's office. The gravity and instability of the situation at hand cannot be overstated. The risk to California, to our businesses, our workers, our families, cannot be overstated. As of April 2nd, Trump has imposed tariffs on every single one of the U.S.'s trade partners, sending shockwaves around the globe. On average, the tariffs are more than 22%, the highest in more than a century. For some trade partners, the tariffs are much steeper. Tariffs on our neighbors, Mexico and Canada, are 25% for more than half of goods. Canada has responded with a 25% retaliatory tariff, including on fresh produce and wine from California. The tariffs on China are now at an astronomical 145%. In response, China has retaliated with a 125% tariff on U.S. goods, including on California nuts and dairy products. Just 2 days after Trump announced his most sweeping tariffs, the U.S. stock market suffered the largest two-day loss in history. One analysis projects that the tariffs will make the U.S. economy, quote, permanently smaller by $100 billion annually, end quote. And another found that Trump's tariffs will cost the average American household $2,100 per year. Nothing resembling Trump's campaign promises to fix the economy and make life more affordable for Californians and for Americans. Given California's enormous economic footprint, the impact of these tariffs on our state, our businesses, our people is especially harmful. California is the nation's largest importer and second largest exporter, the largest when it comes to agricultural exports. In 2022, California's agricultural exports brought in nearly $24 billion. Mexico, Canada, and China happen to be our biggest trade partners. Over 40% of California's imports come from those three countries, and they're our top three export destinations, buying close to $67 billion in California exports, over 1/3 of all of our exported goods. Trump's tariffs are already hampering the state's ability, as a major purchaser of goods ourselves, to contract for, purchase, and sell goods. Already vendors have warned us that they're going to pass the cost of Trump's tariffs onto the state of California. Trump may claim he's a great businessman, but Trump's tariffs are truly terrible for business, and they're breaking the law. Let's get to our lawsuit. It focuses specifically on tariffs unlawfully imposed by executive orders that claim authorization under what's known as the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. This is important because Trump claims this law is the reason he can impose these tariffs, and he is wrong. The truth is the IEEPA does not apply here. Trump has had to resort to creating bogus national emergencies that defy reason. He's even claimed there's an influx of illegal immigration and illicit drugs crossing over the Canadian border as the basis for imposing across-the-board tariffs on Canada. It is completely untrue. In actuality, less than 1% of fentanyl and illegal crossings actually come from Canada. The reality is the U.S. Constitution gives Congress the power of the purse. It's Congress's responsibility to set and collect taxes, duties, and excises, including, yes, tariffs, not the president's. Congress hasn't authorized these tariffs, much less authorized imposing tariffs, only to increase them, then pause them, then imminently reinstate them on a whim, causing our nation and the global economy whiplash. Trump is attempting to override Congress and steamroll the separation of powers. That means he's trampling over his own party, by the way, which currently controls Congress. Again, Congress hasn't given him the authority to impose these sweeping and chaotic tariffs pursuant to emergency powers, which means he can't do it. Bottom line, Trump doesn't have the singular power to radically upend the country's economic landscape. That's not how our democracy works. Trump may claim these tariffs send a message to our international partners, but Americans are the ones shouldering the burden. The message Americans are receiving is that your costs are going up. The farmers here in the Central Valley, the small businesses up and down the state, the families sweating over their household budgets to see where exactly they can squeeze out the extra thousands of dollars each year that these tariffs could cost. The cost of groceries and gas and other goods are rising. The cost of bananas, coffee, chocolate, wine, iPhones, video games, clothes, all on the rise. As Republican Senator Ted Cruz said, quote, tariffs are a tax on consumers, end quote. Couldn't say it more clearly. And we're feeling it. Seniors looking at their retirement savings are feeling it. Parents looking at the college funds they've built up for years are feeling it. Farmers looking at the crops they're counting on to support their families and pay their workers are feeling it. Trump's tariffs are a slap in the face to Americans, especially hardworking families just trying to get by. It's time to put this chaos to an end. It's time to hold Trump accountable to the law. With this lawsuit, we are. As Attorney General, it's my job to ensure California remains the best place to live, to work, raise a family, or run a business. That's exactly what I'm doing today. I'm proud to be alongside our great governor to fight for California's vibrant economy, businesses, workers, and families. And before I pass it off to my partner on this lawsuit, Governor Newsom, I want to give a final shout out to the folks on my team who worked tirelessly on this lawsuit. They don't do it for the recognition, but I'm going to recognize them. Zelda Vassar, Carolyn Downs, Laura Haddad, Shawan Shea, Julie Veroff, Matthew Wise, Thomas Patterson, Christina Bull-Arndt, Ellie Bloom. We have a great team, and I'm proud of them. Incredible public servants, each and every one of them. With that, it's my great pleasure to introduce our great governor, Governor Gavin Newsom.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you, Mr. Attorney General, and most importantly, thank you, Christine, for having us and hosting us, and thank you, Chris, for your stewardship and leadership and willingness to be here and step up at this critical moment. Look, I think the Attorney General did an exceptional job in laying out the framework of this lawsuit and the why as it relates to the particular issues under the IEEPA, and notably issues that have been brought to the fore as it relates to the major questions doctrine recently by the Supreme Court. I would just highlight just two of the specific examples the Supreme Court used as it relates to the major questions doctrine on the issue of student loans under the Biden administration, on the Clean Power Plan under the Obama administration. If they are consistent, then this lawsuit is a lock in terms of what the Attorney General has laid out and what this state is asserting. But I want to tell you what our state of mind is as it relates to the issues that impact the state of California, obviously the state of our union, and the state of the economy more globally. We talk often about California being the fifth largest economy in the world. That is correct. We're also the largest manufacturing state in the United States of America, $412 billion output. And I want to put that in perspective. Texas is 41% smaller. It's a 41% larger share of manufacturing output just here in the great state of California. It puts in perspective something that often isn't communicated, I think, as effectively as it should be. By the way, the United States is the second largest manufacturer in the world, which is also something that I think is important to highlight. So the manufacturing footprint in this state is disproportionately impacted by the tariffs, disproportionate to any other state in the nation. Of course, we talk about the fifth largest economy in the world. Let's put that in perspective. We're 14% of the U.S. GDP. That is 50% higher than the next state. No other state will be more impacted by the impacts of this, as Christine said, uncertainty that is best described as toxic uncertainty because of these tariffs. Let me underscore that with more consideration and context to where we are. We are also the largest hunting, fishing, agriculture, and forestry state in this nation, 150% larger than the next state, Texas. When folks talk to us about the impacts, regional impacts of rural economies, you're talking about California. You're not just talking about the Midwest and places like Texas. You're talking about our state, the state of California. Almonds you see around us, export dependent. Pistachios, export dependent. Dairy, export dependent. In fact, 43% of almonds and pistachios and dairy are export dependent in the state of California. Few industries will be hammered more than the toxic uncertainty of these Trump tariffs. The impacts, what more evidence do you need? Check your 401k. Check your portfolio. If it includes NVIDIA, you should check it right now. NVIDIA, the great California company, one highlighted by this same Trump administration over the course of the last 24 to 48 hours, just got hit today with a $5.5 billion charge. Great California company got hit with a $5.5 billion charge, sending the markets to tumble yet again today. NASDAQ down over 2% as I speak. The uncertainty is pronounced and it is profound in the state of California. Consider just the imports coming from Mexico, Canada, and China. 44% of all of imports into the state of California alone come from just those three countries, $197.3 billion in 2023. The impacts of these tariffs particularly on those three countries, disproportionately impact the state of California. Across the spectrum, the impacts are off the charts. We talk about regional disparities. The impact in counties like this, counties like Kern, rural parts of the state will be outsized. It's not just the coast and technology. Think about the impacts already in the mega region of Baja and San Diego. Chris, you were talking about the integration of supply chains and a deeper appreciation and understanding that decades and decades forming a relationship, building trust, manufacturing, one side of the border, assembling on the other side of the border. You think about the impacts, the automobile industry, electronics, aerospace, in our state alone, disproportionate impacts. So California, why California? Well, that's why. No state is poised to lose more than the state of California. So that's our state of mind. And that's why we're asserting ourselves on behalf of 40 million Americans. And I imagine if you caucus those 40 million Americans, you'd find few, I don't care where they were in the last election, that are celebrating this uncertainty, that are celebrating the largest tax increase in modern U.S. history. In essence, a sales tax. In essence, a sales tax, a regressive sales tax that hurts working folks, that hurts poor folks, that hurts hardworking folks like Christine and those that Chris represents disproportionately. This is recklessness at another level. The geopolitical impacts are outsized. The trade impacts are outsized, not just the economic. That's why we were up in Canada making a case anew to try to encourage Canadians. What the hell do we have on the Canadians? Mocking people in another country, one of our great partners? Talking about being a 51st state? The fact that we had to invest in advertising up in Canada to encourage people to come to the great state of California, where 2 million Canadians visited last year, is a sign of the times, a testament to the moment we're living in. We're 2,000 miles away from Washington, D.C. We're a world away from the values that are emanating out of the White House. Again, that's why we're here. That's why we are asserting ourselves. I can't imagine anything more unifying for a state at this moment than stepping up as we're stepping up here today on this critical issue. So I just, again, want to thank the Attorney General, who has not been timid. He mentioned 14 lawsuits. We overall have 15 when you have the one he wasn't directly involved in. I want to thank him, and I want to thank the legislature. Don't forget, we did a special session, seems like a lifetime ago. It was just a few months ago, saying we have an open hand, not a closed fist. And it was a sincere sentiment. We didn't want to go down this path. We were hoping we didn't need to go down this path, but we prepared to go down this path. And so I'm grateful not just to the Attorney General, but to all of those members of his staff that he called out. I want to thank them for their partnership, their stewardship, the legislature, the same, for recognizing the severity of this moment. We talk about angles, we talk about, stupidity. This needs to be updated in the next Wikipedia or the next encyclopedia as a poster child for that. It's a serious and sober moment. And I'd be, in closing, lying to you if I said it can be quickly undone. And that's why we have a unique responsibility to do more at this moment as well. And I've been involved in, I think, 19 or so MOUs with countries around the world. We've been reaching out to foreign leaders. They've been reaching out to us. And the critical nature of subnational trade and people-to-people relationship cannot be understated at this moment. And California can and will play an outsized role in that relationship. We have got to rebuild trust. 80 years of economic dominance in just a matter of weeks being unwound by this kind of recklessness. And so we are here very mindful of the anxiety that this has imposed on all of you, and very mindful of our role and responsibility at this moment, not to be bystanders, and try to shape this debate and shape this conversation in this lawsuit is a meaningful and justifiable effort to do just that, to be accountable at this critical moment in not just California history, but American and world history. With that, we're here to answer any questions. Well, how can you not be? I've got 4 kids. 80% of their toys under their Christmas tree come from China. I've got family members living paycheck to paycheck. Many family members. My mom, who passed away years and years ago, was one of them. I mean, no rationale, no plan, no conscience to what it's doing to real people, no consideration of congressional responsibility. Where the hell is Congress? Where the hell is Speaker Johnson? Do your job. They're sitting there passively as this guy wrecks the economy of the United States of America, which has dominated the global economy. Don't take my word for it. The Wall Street Journal. We are the envy to the world. And overnight, a wrecking ball to America's reputation, our role, and our relationship. And so I'm angry as a parent, as a taxpayer, as someone who has a retirement account that didn't come from wealth, no trust funds in my family. You know, worked hard all my life. A guy who has businesses. I know I'm blind trust. And I trust you can appreciate that I won't try to cross the line on that. But as someone who's built a business that also is export dependent, some of them, industries like ag that I'm involved in, I have a unique understanding. It's not an academic understanding of the stress that folks are going through. And so it connects on every level. And so I'm angry about this.
Governor, you've been very reticent to embrace, we talked about Trump proofing. You famously hated that phrase.
Well, you used it, I didn't. That's why.
Can you talk about, kind of why you're embracing this moment to be more aggressive against the Trump administration?
I mean, it's
been 2 weeks since the tariffs took effect. Why now?
Because for the last few weeks we've been absorbing the impacts. We've been looking at the law. We've been coordinating and collaborating with our Attorney General. We've been talking to other states, and we're the first mover. And that's what California does. Every one of the lawsuits that have been mentioned, we have been part of. We're funding. We're working in collaboration and partnership. So why now? Well, that's pretty consistent with past practice. And you may recall we were involved in 122 lawsuits against the Trump administration and Trump 1.0. Had this the 15, it's 137. There's no more, I think, assertive state in our union that's standing up for the state of this union than the state of California.
Mr. Governor, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about the response you've gotten from those working leaders that you asked to spare California from retaliation.
Well, we have great relationships, not good relationships, great relationships. You've seen, they've shared, not just me, some of the recent meetings we've had with the ambassador to Germany, ambassador to UK, to the premier just 48 hours ago, the premier of British Columbia. Those are just 3 recent examples. That doesn't even include all the other private conversations I've had that were respecting the privacy. All the outreach, the MOUs that people are looking to see if we can update the relationships they're trying to maintain. And the imperative, they want to know that we're a stable partner. They want to know we're not going to turn their back as this administration's turned their back on our allies. And they want to know that we're going to continue to have their back as it relates to addressing the anxiety and uncertainty, particularly as it relates to their making a case. And I find this interesting. Making a case that we don't even need to make, but they're making, that California is not this administration in terms of policy in context of retaliatory tariffs. Now, I have no authority in terms of international trade. I recognize the limitations. That said, Through the governor's office of business, we created an international arm. We've been very proactive, very aggressive. Lieutenant governor's been a leader and point person in that respect. And so we're building on that work, and we're building on those relationships. And
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Charlotte, or WCNC Plus. We had to step away from that press conference there in California with California Governor Gavin Newsom to take you here to El Salvador, where Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is set to greet the president of El Salvador. Now, this comes as a federal judge held a hearing yesterday afternoon on Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man the Justice Department said the United States mistakenly deported to El Salvador. The judge told the government's lawyer that the Trump administration has done, quote, nothing to help bring back Abrego Garcia, despite court orders to do just that. Again, you see right there, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is awaiting the arrival of El Salvador's president, set to meet soon. So we will continue to track this as he continues to wait. And we want to take you back. We want to go back to California to the news conference, Carlene? Yes. Okay, we're going to take you back to the news conference, and we'll keep you updated on. Keep it on the screen. Okay, we'll keep it on the screen for you so you can see as soon as they meet.
From another donor that there will be a waiver, there will be an exemption. I mean, from free capitalism to crony capitalism, just like that. Corruption, this is the personification of corruption. I appreciate the press. You chase this for a living. This is smash mouth in your face. Every minute of every day, every hour, and you know it. You've seen it. How in the hell are we sitting by and allowing this to happen? So again, that's the why, and that's what we are pushing back against in this lawsuit.
How do you think the court's going to... Thanks for taking the time. Thanks, Attorney General, and Christine and Chris for hosting us. Two quick questions. Number one, have you spoken to the president about this? And number two, forgive me, it's unrelated, from Tron 4, Channel 4 News in the Bay Area. Do you have any reaction to the Benicia refinery announcing their, refinery?
Yeah, Valero. Just briefly on that, respecting the importance of that question. Under our special session, the first special session bill we advanced, there was a requirement to give notification as relates to any augmentation operations or closures for refineries in the state of California. Pursuant to that, we were given notification this morning, late last night, early this morning, made official, and we have a year to now address that issue. And I can assure you, beginning last night, we had all hands, and we're in the process of addressing any anxiety that may be created or any market disruption that may be created by that announcement. But we have time pursuant to that special session to mark some progress. And already this morning, first thing this morning, our teams are assembling to advance that progress in concert, in partnership with the legislature. On your first question, perhaps you can advance that.
Yes, have you spoken to President Donald Trump?
I haven't spoken to him directly, but we reached out to the White House to give them heads up.
Governor, my name is Anahita Jafari. I'm a reporter with KCRA 3 News. Last month, we reported how you sent bat phones to the CEOs of the largest companies headquartered.
Were they bat phones? I like that. I like the description, bat phones. I'm going to keep that. Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's nice. I mean, it sounds.
Line programmed into them. Have those CEOs discussed tariffs with you now through this new line of communication?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, all of them, there's not one that has expressed anything differently. All of them have brought the issue of tariffs up and uncertainty.
Can you say who you've been talking to?
No.
What specific concerns
I don't want to call them out. Again, the idea of let me just say, just on the meta point, in some matter, what the hell, bat phones and the governor. So I thought it was important that some of the biggest job creators, we've been doing this, as you know, with our Jobs First plan with small businesses. For the last few years, we've built this framework around regions rising together, and I'm really proud of that work. I felt we needed to do the same for some of the larger employers in the state. And so I reached out to them, and I did.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right there, you're watching a news conference with Governor Gavin Newsom. On the bottom right screen, we're tracking Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and I see that shot. It looks like it's about to go down, but I at least want to let you know that made a mistake. I said the president of El Salvador he was welcoming El Salvador's defense minister to the Pentagon. So they just went inside. They just greeted each other, went inside. So that shot is up. But we want to take you back to Sacramento, California, where Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, is speaking on tariffs and the Trump administration lawsuit that he and the Attorney General of California are filing today. Let's take a listen in.
I said the worst on goal in the history of this country. One of the most self-destructive things that we've experienced in modern American history. I mean, the Attorney General just laid out the 22%. Some have estimated as much as 26.7, 27% all in. But you're getting near that the Smoot-Hawley numbers that every independent assessment said exacerbated the Great Depression. I mean, it's literally comparable to that. I know a thing or two about China. I've sat down with President Xi. This is serious, and we need to take it seriously. And again, no state has more to lose.
How do you think the court's going to respond to this lawsuit?
I'm sorry?
How do you think the court's going to respond to this lawsuit?
Well, I got my attorney here.
We bring lawsuits when we think we're going to win. We've done that in the other 13 lawsuits up to this point. We've had a lot of success in those lawsuits so far, securing temporary restraining orders, preliminary injunctions. The approach here is the same, although its application is different in that it applies to these universal tariffs. It's the idea that the president is exercising authority that he doesn't have. The president can't do unlawful things. It's really that simple. And he thinks he's above the law. He's not. He thinks he can violate the Constitution and the law, and he can't. And so it's up to us to hold him accountable to following the law. And in any court where we will get what courts give, a fair and objective hearing, a full review of the facts, of complete analysis of the law, we believe we'll be successful. And we believe that in this case.
Have you been able to calculate and project the economic impact of tariffs for California? Are there a number you can put out yet?
Well, let me give you some proof points just to start, just for the process consideration. Just think about the procurement in the state of California, meaning the state buys goods and services. IT. We buy over $10 billion a year in IT and other non-IT goods. The tariffs, by definition, have already had an impact on the cost of those goods. So that's a direct economic impact. I talked to you about the markets. Why do I bring up the markets? Because the markets in California play an outsized role in our budget. Capital gains plays an outsized role in our budget. NVIDIA's success as a company, I gave it a proof point, plays an outsized role in the revenue we generate in this state and our ability to support critical programs, including supporting farmers like Christine. The impacts of that have already forced and compelled me to adjust the budget that I will be submitting in May. The May revise will reflect a downgrade in economic outlook in this state. I have been meeting consistently in the last few weeks with economists, not only state economists, independent economists. Universally, they have significantly downgraded the GDP projections for the state of California next year, have increased, as a consequence of this toxic uncertainty, the likelihood that our unemployment rate will go up, not down, and that the environment will precipitate in higher inflation. All of those things will inure to slower economic growth, less capital gains revenue, and a significant, from my humble perspective, how significant, stay tuned to the May 15th revise, change in our projections as it relates to revenue collection and an adjustment into our baseline spending in order to submit, as I'm constitutionally required, a balanced budget. So the impacts on the budget of this state are already being felt, and the full impacts have yet to be fully felt. Sorry. One second, just
push for tariff exemptions on almond growers, especially in Stanislaus County, which makes up 18% of the state's almond value, and also a county that is largely backed Trump. Why do you think the president will not budge on this?
Well, look, I want to give the president his due in this respect. I'm old enough to remember in the 1980s, I think it was a full-page ad that President Trump, at the time Donald Trump, businessman, put out complaining about trade policy in the United States vis-a-vis Japan. He's been very consistent on this issue for decades and decades. I give him his due in that respect. You saw in the first administration, I talk about crony capitalism. I didn't say that lightly. That comes from the basis of an independent analysis of waivers that were provided in the first Trump administration and how they were directly connected to donors to the Republican Party. He's been consistent for years and years. But this rationale across the board, 10% tariffs, the irrational determination of 145% in China, the fact that he negotiated what he said was a great trade deal, the USMCA, and now he's trashing his own deal, shows a level of recklessness that even I did not anticipate. And I imagine many of his supporters may not, to your question. I'm here because I come here often. I'm here because I have a responsibility to support people like Christine and those that Chris represents. I'm here not because folks here, I'm very mindful, voted for me or even Kamala Harris. I'm here because they matter and we care. And I'm here because they're disproportionately going to be hurt by this, by the guy that's betrayed them. Donald Trump is betraying the people of the Central Valley. He is betraying the people that supported him. Donald Trump has turned their back, his back, on his supporters. We will not turn our back on those that supported Donald Trump. We will have their back. That's why I'm back in the Central Valley.
Some exemptions for big companies, even in California, have been made in these tariffs. What about small businesses that don't have that visibility?
That's it. That's by definition crony capitalism. Because your fancy CEO may have gotten a cell phone and you made the call. It's why I predicated what I said as it relates to those cell phones on the work I've done for small business as a foundational point. And that's why we're here with small business. But that's exactly right. What's their representation? And that's where states come in. And that's where a state of mind to push back, to be firm, to be resolved, come in. That's where leadership comes in, Speaker Johnson. That's where leadership comes in, accountability, responsibility, Speaker Johnson, to have the back of small businesses you claim to represent. Where the hell is Congress? The best of the Greek democracy, the Roman Republic, 3 branches of government, independent, co-equal branches of government, popular sovereignty, the rule of law. The rule of law. You saw a federal judge today on contempt charges against the administration, or at least asserting probable cause for contempt charges, criminal charges against the Trump administration on the fundamental rule of law, the principles of our founding fathers, the 250th anniversary of this great republic we're about to celebrate, that has held this place together, that has bound us together. All of that being challenged, a recklessness, a wrecking ball to the principles of our founding fathers. So I'm sorry to, you asked me if I'm angry. I'm resolved. That's all. And I'm proud of this state. And I'm proud to have an attorney general and a legislature that get it. And I'm proud to have this gift of having some agency and having a little authority as governor to push back against this at this moment.
Along the lines of the budget, can you talk about California's a lot of federal funding on the line, wildfire relief, Medi-Cal. Are you concerned about the Trump administration retaliating in these ways?
Well, let me remind you guys of this. California last year, as a donor state, provided $83.1 billion. Maybe worth actually writing this down. $83.1 billion. We provided more to the federal government than we received. By the way, Texas received $71.1 billion more than they provided the federal government. So I'll just remind you of that. California, as a donor state, the balance of the books, provided $83.1 billion. Texas took $71.1 billion. Top 4 states that were donor states, all blue states. Interesting fact. So when it comes to federal support, we would expect to be treated fairly. And I say this as a donor state that doesn't even get back all of the money that we provide the federal government. I'm proud to have the backs of states that are struggling. I'm proud to have the back of Speaker Johnson's state when they were struggling because of the hurricanes. As a taxpayer, I was proud to support them. And I would hope the same would be extended, and I expect it will be. That's above politics. I spent 90 minutes in the Oval Office with the president. I've been on the phone with him on multiple occasions. I'll work with President Trump on issues any day of the week that we can work together to advance the cause that I think bind us together. And that's the cause of this state and the fact that we're the tentpole of the American economy, the cause that I think unites us across this country in relationship to this state. And that's my state of mind, and I'll maintain it. I deeply disagree with him on this. I think the overwhelming majority of Americans agree with our position and disagree with his. And I hope they also would find it in their hearts to support those in need, American citizens that happen to live in the state of California as it relates to the recovery efforts in Los Angeles. And one last point, 75% of the lumber that the United States imports comes from Canada. I'll repeat that, 75% of the lumber that we import comes from Canada. The cost of rebuilding have already been impacted by these tariffs in Southern California. The cost of housing has gone up. The cost of the recovery has gone up. I could cite over and over specific examples. We haven't even fully absorbed, to your earlier question, the magnitude of the economic costs already of the recklessness of these tax increases, these tariffs.
One last question on back to Judge Ellsberg's finding this morning.
Yeah, it's a this is the distraction of the day, the art of distraction. Don't get distracted by distractions, we say, and here we zig and zag. This is the debate they want. This is their 80-20 issue as they've described it. Those that believe in the rule of law defending it, but it's a tough case because people are they defending MS-13? Are they defending, someone who's out of sight, out of mind in El Salvador? I mean, we're perfect sheep. So I want to answer your question. I don't know I add much value answering it. I mean, are you kidding me? Come on. I remember I saw some pundit the other day say, I remember that Newsom guy when he did gay marriage in 2004. The hell is he talking about? He's kept marrying people, 4,036 couples from 46 states and 6 countries. What about the rule of law? Well, maybe they forgot. The judges said there was no irreparable harm. And when the judges, the California Supreme Court, said we should stop, we stopped immediately. It wasn't even in question. When a judge adjudicates, it's not in question. How in the hell are we even debating that? It's Orwellian that you're debating that. And it's exactly the debate they want, because they don't want this debate on the tariffs. They don't want to be accountable to the markets today. They don't want to answer for NVIDIA taking a $5.5 billion charge. They don't want to have a real conversation with Christine and what's going on in terms of the export uncertainty here in the Valley. They want to have this conversation. Don't get distracted by distractions. We're all perfect sheep. Thank you guys very much.
Media could just hold in place for a minute or two. Thank you.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. Right there is a news conference that's just wrapped up in Sacramento, California. California's Governor Gavin Newsom announcing, along with the Attorney General there for the state, announcing a lawsuit against the Trump administration on the tariffs. Again, the tariffs have been a big story, big point of concern to folks across the country. So again, they're announcing a lawsuit against the Trump administration. We want to send you now to Los Angeles, the LA area, where right now a news briefing press conference just wrapped up. A group is opposing the Menendez brothers resentencing news hearing. Is that still happening?
It's in Spanish.
Okay. That is in Spanish, so we're going to hold off on that for now. Okay. All right. So we're going to shift over, and this is the point. This is Live Impact News for you. Stuff, things, events, live events happening in real time, and sometimes we have to pivot on the fly. So, all right. So we want to send you now to Des Moines, Iowa, where Iowa Attorney General Brianna Byrd is expected to announce a major cold case unit initiative, she says, that will help crack down on Iowa's unsolved murders. That press conference is set to start. Let's take you there live again. It looks like that press conference is about to start, but this is in Des Moines, Iowa. Again, Iowa Attorney General Brianna Byrd says she is announcing a major cold case unit initiative that she says will help crack Iowa's unsolved murders. So again, that is set to take place. Now, last summer, just to give you some background, Attorney General Byrd launched a cold case unit to tackle Iowa's 400-plus unsolved murders. Lawmakers there allocated a little over $500,000 to fund the initiative in the 2024 legislative session. You can see there, as it appears, the leaders there in Iowa, state leaders, it looks like law enforcement leaders. And also it appeared that family members from previous cases are there on the front row as this press conference is set to start. But again, this is happening at the Des Moines Police Department. Expected to start any moment now. But again, I just want to go over what's expected to happen. You see Attorney General Brianna Byrd, again, she's expected to announce a major cold case unit initiative to help crack Iowa's unsolved murders. So that press conference is set to start. She is there. The Attorney General is there at the podium. And yeah, let's listen in.
Well, thank you for being here today, and a big thank you to the Des Moines Police Department for hosting this event here today. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. And I'm very thankful for particularly the families who are here today, friends and families who have lost a loved one, and their loved one's case is one of the over 400 unsolved homicides here in Iowa. Thank you for being here with us today, and we do what we do for you. You know, as a prosecutor, I fight for justice, and I fight for victims and for families, and that's why on day one, I made it a top priority that Iowa should have a dedicated cold case unit in the Attorney General's office, and wanted to launch that office. We worked hard on it. Appreciate all the support of all the people that made it possible, because family deserves to wait for decades for answers on what happened to their loved one, and no one should get away with murder. My promise to families is this: we will never give up. We will never stop searching. We will never lose hope. We will work for justice. And I'm glad to say we're keeping that promise every day. Last year, our Iowa legislature and Governor Reynolds approved the appropriation to give our office the funds for a cold case unit. And in Iowa, we don't just back our law enforcement. We've got great law enforcement here in Iowa, but we empower them, we support them. And our team in the Attorney General's office, we bring fresh eyes to Iowa cold cases. They dig through information and pursue leads, and they work alongside our heroes in law enforcement all across the state to crack these cases. From the local police department to the sheriff's office, state law enforcement, to federal resources like the FBI, we all work together as a team on these cold cases, and their work matters. Because we know for many families, they had no chance to say goodbye. There was no final hug, just years and sometimes even decades of silence. And that's a reality that too many Iowa families have had to face. There's no more birthdays. They can't come to the wedding. And they're missed every day in their families' and friends' lives. And let me be clear about our cold case unit. No stone will go unturned. No case is too cold. And we will hunt down those who think they can outrun justice. But we're not done. We're taking a bold new step to bring our families here in Iowa the answers that they deserve. Today, I'm announcing the launch of the new Iowa cold case playing cards. This unique card deck shines a light on 52 of Iowa's unsolved cases. And cases in this deck, they range from unsolved homicides to missing persons cases to unidentified remains cases. And these are the cases that continue to cast a shadow over our communities and weigh heavily on the hearts of prosecutors and law enforcement all across the state who hope for justice. You know, each and every case in this deck represents more than just an unsolved case. Each card is a life, a story, and a family searching for answers. We believe these cards will help to unlock the answers and to get leads. These decks will be sent to Iowa's correctional facilities where inmates can use the cards, and each of our sheriff's offices and other law enforcement will have that same opportunity to use these cards in their jails. Our goal is simple. We want to start a conversation. We want to start or spark a memory. And someone might recognize a name. They might overhear or remember a conversation, or they might even feel that weight of a long-held secret that they never should have kept. And it's time now for the people with information or who might know something to come forward. My office has a dedicated cold case tip line, 1-800-242-5100, a dedicated cold case tip line, and also an email address. It's called coldcase@ag.iowa.gov. One tip, one memory, that could be the one that breaks a case. We know these cards work. Other states have used them as well, and today we are joined by families whose loved ones are featured in this first edition of the Iowa Cold Case Playing Cards. And I want the families here to know you and your loved ones, you're the reason that we're doing this. We hope these cards will deliver long-awaited answers, not only to you, but to all Iowans with loved ones and all of us who care about unsolved cold cases. This card deck is a way we get the word out to people who might hold that missing piece of information that could unlock the truth. Maybe just a small bit that helps to put investigators onto the right path or turns over another lead in the case. If we solve just one case or uncover answers for just one family, it is all worth it. We know that someone somewhere knows something, and we want them to come forward and tell us what they know. With these cold case cards, we're one step closer to finding the truth. Now I'd like to introduce Steve Ponsetto. He's the lead investigator of our cold case unit in our office, and he's going to talk a little bit about the cold case deck and how it was formed.
Thank you, Attorney General Byrd. Thank you for your leadership and commitment to the people of Iowa and this cold case effort. Under your leadership and the support of the Iowa legislature, the statewide cold case unit became a reality on July 1st, 2024. My name is Steve Ponsetto. I am a retired Iowa DCI special agent. I spent a 33-year law enforcement career in the Iowa Department of Public Safety as a state trooper and a special agent. I'm honored to be part of the Attorney General's team and the statewide cold case unit. To refresh your memory, what is a cold case? It's any death case identified as a homicide or missing person with suspicious circumstances or unidentified human remains, and when active leads have been exhausted as determined by the originating law enforcement agency. Since we last met, the cold case team has come together and now consists of 4 Attorney General investigators and an Assistant Attorney General prosecutor. These 5 individuals make up the Attorney General's cold case unit with a mission and vision of the following. The mission of the cold case unit is to assist law enforcement and prosecutors in cases involving unresolved homicides, missing persons under suspicious circumstances, or unidentified human remains by providing investigative, prosecution, and victim service support. This partnership is performed with dedication and integrity. The vision of the cold case unit is to provide justice for victims, answers for families, and accountability for offenders, while upholding the rights of all people. Today, we're here to talk about another piece of the cold case effort, and that is the cold case playing cards. Each card portrays a cold case in the state of Iowa. And if you recall, we have over 400 of them. The cold case cards are about generating information. Please remember, no matter the case, somebody knows something. By way of background, a cold case playing card committee was created with the following members: the Iowa State Sheriffs and Deputies Association, the Iowa Police Chiefs Association, the Iowa Department of Public Safety, Division of Criminal Investigation, the Iowa Department of Corrections, the Iowa County Attorneys Association, IowaColdCases.org creator Jody Ewing, and the Iowa Attorney General's Office. This committee coordinated and collaborated with law enforcement agencies across the state to identify 52 cases to be featured on the playing cards. There are family members of several of these cold cases here today. Their attendance sends us all a message. Hope cannot be forgotten. They each have a sticker on their shirt or jacket, so please take a moment to visit with them. When you combine this initiative and the strong partnerships within the Iowa criminal justice system, the Iowa Attorney General's Office is encouraged by the potential this cold case unit can and is bringing to the people of Iowa. We continue to think of different ways to generate information flow and exchange with the ultimate goal of furthering a cold case investigation. All of us working together for a common goal is what Iowans expect from their government. Together, we can speak for those who cannot. Together, we can make a difference for those seeking answers, and together we can bring justice to those responsible. Everyone in this room is a partner. If you know something, say something. Thank you. I would like to recognize this is all about a partnership, teamwork, collaboration, and we're joined by guests today: John King, Palo Alto County Sheriff's Office, Seth Nelson from the Palo Alto County Sheriff's Office, Constant Thorndahl from Story County Sheriff's Office, AJ Acalo, Marshalltown PD, Sadie Weekly, Marshalltown PD. Kelly Kyokeski, Waukee PD. Nicholas Lenny, Story County Sheriff's Office. Justin Allen, Polk County Attorney's Office. Dennis McDaniel, Johnston Police Department. Bob Stanton, Polk County Sheriff's Office. Mark Moore, Polk County Sheriff's Office. Adam DeCamp, DCI. Doug Eiholtz, Warren County Attorney's Office. Rich DeJody, K-9 of the Midlands. Chief Michael McTaggart, Des Moines Police Department. Major David Ness, Des Moines Police Department. Kevin Hall, FBI. Ryan Doty, Des Moines PD. And Keith Davis, Wayne County Sheriff's Office. I want to publicly thank all of them for their partnership, because this could not be done without a team effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, and a special thank you too to Pablo with Crisis K-9 of the Midlands. He's that cute pup you've seen here, providing comfort and support to our first responders and law enforcement, and also those who have been impacted by crime. So thank you so much for that, for Crisis K-9s. But want to introduce next Haley Elliott. Haley is going to talk about her aunt Ruthie Kingery Polmeyer's story. Haley.
My Aunt Ruthie was a kind-hearted, fun-loving aunt. She had the best sense of humor and always made us laugh when we saw her. She was a sister to my mom that was able to laugh with, cry with, and argue with. She was selfless and loved wholeheartedly. She truly cared about the people she was around. She always made you feel important. On April 25th, 2004, my Aunt Ruthie was brutally beaten to death, wrapped in a blanket, and left in a bowling alley. She was 37 years old. Losing a close family member is always difficult to process. While trying to reminisce on all the memories and the good times, you're stuck with every emotion in the book. On top of all the emotions grief causes, we're left with unanswered questions. We don't know anything. How many people were involved? Why did you choose her? What led up to this, and how did you know her? I don't understand how there's nobody that knows anything. There's got to be someone out there who knows what happens. It wasn't just a body or a random person. It never was. She was my aunt, a friend, a sister, and a daughter with a beautiful soul.
Oh, Haley did a great job. Thank you. Thank you, Haley. Next, we have Brandy Weber, who's here with us. She's the granddaughter of Bill and Kay Wood, and she'd like to say a few words on behalf of her family. Brandy.
I would like to say thank you to everyone who have continued to put Grandma and William in their thoughts over the last 13 years. To those of you who have shared the pursuit of interest, keeping this going and continuously pushing for justice. It has been extremely hard for our families, but knowing there are people out there who have seen how much Grandma and William have touched us and those around them gives me a little bit of hope for humanity. Hope, a feeling we are all feeling today. Hope that getting fresh new eyes on our cases is just what they need. Hope that more people will come forward with more information they have, and in the future we will have justice for William and Grandma. I also have something from my Aunt Kathy from Maine, who cannot be here. I am the oldest child of Kay living in Maine. She has 6 children, 3 who live in Iowa and 3 who live in Maine. It is very difficult for us to believe that we still have no information regarding the disappearance of our mother. Here we are almost 14 years later since the murder of William and the disappearance of Mom. I feel for William's family as they have lost a nice man, but they have at least have some closure. They have him. We can't say the same. It hasn't gotten any easier over the years. Holidays, birthdays, or daily events, I think of my mom and what she would have done if she was here. I miss our every Sunday afternoon phone calls at 3:30 p.m. to catch up on what's going on with her. Grandma Kay would have loved to meet her great-grandchildren and sing You Are My Sunshine, just as she did to her grandchildren, or make her big cream puffs or chocolate cake with peanut butter frosting. These are all things that they or she will never share, or we as adult children will never be able to fight over why she made it for me and didn't make it for them. Words will never express how I feel about not having Mom. I do think of her daily. My emotions are all over the place at times. I love her and I miss her. I get sad because she's not here. I get mad that someone did something to take her away from me. This may not be nice, but I do pray to God that every night that the person who took her, when they close their eyes, they see my Mom's face and remember what they did. You are a coward. To what you did to two people, Mom and William, would never harm you, and if asked, would have tried to help you if they could. All I'm asking is to find out where my mother is, her family in Maine and Iowa, her sister, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren just want to find her and bring her home. I do want to thank Detective Mike Rowe for his dedication to the case, who over the past 3 years, I have bugged monthly for information and questions, and the Iowa cold case we're taking this case on. Someone knows what happened and who did this. Please step up and get us answers where we can find my mom, and we will let the DCI cold case handle who did this. Please, if anyone has any information, come forward.
Thank you, Brandy. Next, we'll hear from Josh Oakland and his sister, Brittany Bruce. Josh lost his sister, Ashley Oakland, who's also Brittany's sister as well. Josh.
Good afternoon, Josh Oakland. Just here to speak on behalf of the Oakland family. We're very grateful for what has happened here. I appreciate the Attorney General including my family and being at this today. I appreciate Steve Ponsetto including me and a lot of the early details of setting this up. We're really excited about what this opportunity presents for not only our family, but for all of the other victim families that are here with us today. This new group is highly motivated, and we're excited to see what they can get done. So, thank you.
Hi, excuse me, I'm Brittany, like they said. I just want to echo what Josh is saying. I think we've been fortunate to have Ashley's case in the media for the last 14 years, but there's a lot of victim families out there that have not had the press that we have, and every case deserves the time, the people to spend the time that they have on Ashley's case. And we're excited to have new eyes on Ashley's case, and it really blows me away to see the amount of people here today and behind the scenes who have put this together and will continue to work for our justice, and obviously hope that many more families will see that in the coming years. So just want to say thank you to you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Brittany and Josh. Thank you. This would not be possible, our cold case unit and our cold case playing cards, without strong support from law enforcement and law enforcement organizations all across the state. And Sheriff Jason Sandholt from Marion County was part of the team that helped us make this happen. So we'll hear from Sheriff Sandholt next.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Jason Sandel. I'm past president of the Iowa Sheriffs and Deputies Association, and like the Attorney General said, we were proud to be a partner in this. But one of the things I just wanted to stress is you heard from a few families. Think about all the other families that are out there that are a part of this deck of cards, and we ask for your help. There are people out there that know stuff, and we want to bring closure to these families. It's near and dear. You see how dedicated the family is. You see how dedicated law enforcement is. So if you know something, please reach out. We're going to get this. This impacts all corners of the state. I mean, and we're going to get these decks out to all the jails, all the prisons, all the places that we think that anybody that might have information can give us that information. It's worked in other states, and I know it can work in Iowa.
Thank you. Well, thank you. And finally, we'll hear from Chief McTaggart here from the Des Moines Police Department. And thank you, Chief, for welcoming us here today and hosting us and hosting these families here today. Chief.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. My name is Mike McTaggart. I'm Chief of Police at Des Moines Police Department.
First off, I'd like to thank the legislature for allocating this money. The Attorney General's office, and Brenna Bird, and everybody in her office that fought to create this unit. Steve Ponsetto has formed a large group of excellent detectives that are going to get this job done. We're excited. Cold cases are very difficult for departments to continue to investigate because other incidents come in and you focus on the newer stuff. And this allows those cases to get the work done that is needed. And we, along with everybody else in law enforcement, want to solve these cases. And this unit will allow that. They'll allow for some measure of justice and closure for the families. But with technology and resources that are going to be put into this, I think that this unit is going to be very successful. And if you committed any of these crimes and you think that you got away with it and it's been a number of years, I guarantee you, you will be wrong. And I'm excited to see the success of this program. So thank you everybody for dedicating yourselves to take on this challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Yeah. Well, with that, we would take any questions you have about our cold case unit or our deck of playing cards with cold cases. We'd ask that the press present confine their questions just to that issue out of respect to the families here that have lost a loved one and all the other families around Iowa that have lost a loved one due to a case that's gone cold. So any questions? Yes.
So you mentioned that other states have seen successes with this. Can you talk about what successes they've seen or what the results have been from doing something similar?
Yeah, I know Steve has some details, but I just want to stress this. This cold case deck is a way to get the word out to Iowans, to remind them about these cases and to make sure they know that they can reach out to our office or their local law enforcement with any leads or anything they might know about a cold case, whether they think it's significant or not. It's another way for us to remind Iowans to come forward. And this cold case unit has been a long time in the making. We're very grateful for it, but if we are able to solve just one case, it makes it all worth it. And these are tough cases. Other states have used these decks. I think it's the first time anything like this has been done in Iowa, but other states have seen.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right now, you're watching live a news conference in Des Moines, Iowa, as the Attorney General, you see right there on your screen, announces a new cold case initiative. And folks, that's my time. We're near the top of the hour. Vanessa Rufus is coming right behind me, so stay right there. Don't turn off the TV. Leave the TV on. Vanessa Rufus is coming up in just a few moments. But for now, let's take you back live to this press conference in Iowa.
For example, has had these cards for approximately a decade, and they've solved 20. Kansas recently got these cards within the last few years, and I know of at least one they've solved.
How can Iowans get these cards? Are they going to be distributed anywhere other than prisons and jails?
The cards primarily will go to prisons and jails, and to be clear, no taxpayer dollars were used to create the cards. These are many of the organizations that we mentioned.
Vanessa Rufus here in the Live Impact News studio taking over for Nick Sturdivant. We were just watching live here in Des Moines, Iowa, this cold case initiative that's been announced here with various cases being highlighted. We're going to move away from that right now to turn our attention to a big update that we're seeing out of Toronto. Authorities there are giving the latest information on what might have been an intentional hit and run that happened near a university in Toronto. So 4 people were actually struck on a walkway at Toronto Metropolitan University yesterday. 4 injured, sounds like 2 had to go to the hospital, 1 with serious injuries. An inspector here with this case is giving an update as we speak, so we're going to listen in live right now. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Ryan Petroff, 23, of Toronto.
His image is displayed beside me here. We believe this individual is dangerous, and we are urging the public not to approach him. If you see him, call police immediately. Mr. Petrov, if you are seeing this, get legal counsel and turn yourself in to the police. I can also confirm that the vehicle involved in this incident was a green four-door Honda with stolen license plates. At this time, we have not yet located the vehicle. I understand there's significant interest in the circumstances that led to this violent incident. What I can confirm is that individuals at the scene were able to identify Mr. Petrov as the suspect. To protect the identity of the victim, we are not commenting on the nature of the relationship between the suspect and the targeted individual, nor can we speak to the motivations at this stage. Thank you. Once again, if you have any information about what happened yesterday, or if you know the whereabouts of Ryan Petrov, please contact police. If you see Mr. Petrov, call 911 immediately. You can also reach us with information at 416-808-5100, or leave an anonymous tip through Crime Stoppers at 416-222-TIPS. I'll now take any questions.
Inspector, can you talk about the efforts being made right now across the city, and I imagine across the GTA, to find Mr. Petrov?
Yes, well, since the original event that occurred yesterday, we have utilized all our resources as the police service to see if we can find this individual. So I will say this, Mr. Petrov, regardless if you come to 51 Division or any of the other divisions within Toronto, please get in contact with the legal counsel and turn yourself in today.
The license plate and vehicle description were put out pretty quickly. Have there been any more sightings of the vehicle in particular since 2 o'clock this afternoon? Where is his last known location?
We are still working on identifying where that individual is right now, so that's part of our investigation.
Any further sightings of members of the public who saw your description or heard the license plate as per the duty inspectors at the scene yesterday?
I do not have any details if there have been any recent or further sightings of either the vehicle or the individual in question, but that is why we're asking the public, if you do see this individual, please contact 416-808-5100 or contact and anonymously TIPS, 222-TIPS.
I imagine that they're, like, during 2 o'clock in the afternoon, fleeing that scene in downtown Toronto might have caused some chaos. Was there any other damage in the city caused by this person and that vehicle?
From the information that we received at the time, other than the people that were injured, there's no other damage that we could identify.
Is Mr. Petrov known to authorities?
If Mr. Petrov is known to authorities?
Prior to this incident?
Well, since this is an active investigation, I cannot comment on whether or not he is known to the authorities, but I will ask once again that if anyone does see Mr. Petrov, to please contact us, and I also say to Mr. Petrov, it's in his best interest to come and turn yourself in.
Inspector, he's charged with 2 counts of failed to comply with probation, which obviously has been in the criminal system before. Can you speak at all about his criminal past?
Other than the information that you have there, I can't speak to his criminal history if he had one previous or otherwise.
People at the scene told CB24 yesterday that perhaps he'd been someone who stayed at Covenant House. Do you have any information about Mr. Petrov being in the city's shelter system, whether recently or some point in the past?
I cannot speak to whether or not Mr. Petrov had been in the shelter system previously. As this is an active investigation, we are still working on using all our resources to be able to identify and find this individual.
TMU is under your jurisdiction in 51 Division. Today we've just heard from them actually a few minutes ago that they've increased putting more planters around that walkway. What do you say as a public safety expert, and what you would say to TMU as to how they can best support their students and make it as safe on campus as possible?
It's understandable in an incident like this that people may be concerned as towards what could happen in the future. We work very strongly with TMU and their management when it comes to making the place safer on a day-to-day basis, and we will continue to work with our partners at TMU to look at strategies that we can use to advance safety at that location.
mentioned that the license plates were stolen. Was the vehicle stolen as well?
We're still working on that right now, so I cannot determine whether or not the vehicle was actually stolen at this time.
We're going to take one more question.
I know you won't comment on the nature between the victim and Mr. Petrov, but can you talk about if the victim is cooperating with police?
What I can say is the most important thing is we're looking at the safety of the victim. So at this time, because it's an active investigation, I cannot state anything further as towards whether or not there's a relationship between the two parties. What I can say, though, is that we continue to work as hard as possible, be able to find this individual and have him brought to justice.
Just one more, Emmy. Obviously, we've been at school today. I'm just wondering about any police presence at the school and what's being done right now to ensure continued security of student staff and other people who use that route.
That's an excellent question. So, as I stated before, or was advised earlier, 51 Division, TMU is part of 51 Division. We have an excellent relationship with the management and staff there. In fact, I just had a meeting today with some of the representatives from TMU. So we will continue to work on strategies in order to enhance safety at that location on a regular basis.
What's your message to the community, people who are not necessarily connected to TMU?
All right, folks, you've been watching live here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, this briefing from authorities in Toronto, Canada, giving an update on a hit and run that happened at Toronto Metropolitan University. 4 people struck on a sidewalk in that area yesterday, and initial investigation apparently showing that this could have been intentional. Just a few moments ago, we heard authorities give the name of a person that they are seeking. It sounds like it is Ryan Petrov is the name. Authorities not elaborating, though, on any potential relationship between Mr. Petrov, which you could see here, 23 years old, of Toronto, his image being showcased there by Toronto police. So we don't know his relation to any of the folks who were struck in this incident, nor any motivation. However, they are asking here Ryan Petrov to turn himself in, and if anyone out there knows information, to contact Crime Stoppers there in Toronto. I want to turn now to a big headline for us today in the Carolinas, that is wildfires back again. Top of mind, we've got evacuations that have been ordered from this wildfire that started in McDowell County up in the high country area yesterday. This is a situation that seems to be escalating a little bit in the sense that while we're not seeing the fire danger growing today, it sounds like the fire itself is growing in size and is also kind of crossing bodies of water in the area. So once again, this image coming to us from yesterday showing just a look at some of the visibility issues and the smoke rising from the scene there. So thank you, Dan Crawley, who sent that in to us. We just got this update from fire crews just a few hours ago in McDowell County. This is being called the B Rock Creek Fire. At last check, the fire has grown to 175 acres. It is 0% contained. So essentially, fire crews do not have any substantial fire lines shored up around this fire. And they say that they're dealing with some steep terrain here. They say that there's some heavy storm debris, which we've talked about with prior wildfires in the last several weeks here in the Carolinas, how Hurricane Helene has left a lot of downed trees, which is actually causing and fueling some of these flames as they are caused to grow further with all the extra fuel. So we're seeing that the fire, according to fire officials, has spread out on all sides. It's crossed Pups Branch Creek for folks in the area, and apparently has spread on that side of the creek by about 50 acres. Lots of crews out on scene here, and once again, we have an evacuation order that looks like is still in place. We have not seen any changes with that. So folks in the area of Little Switzerland will have to be on alert. We put some of that information out on our website and inside our mobile app if you want to see more details, but that is a situation we're going to keep an eye on here, obviously throughout the day and potentially in the days to come. We talked about weather impacts. We heard from our weather impact team yesterday that it's been pretty gusty, and you probably felt that if you stepped outside at any point in the day yesterday. Things are blowing around, potential for example, trash cans to get knocked over into your neighbor's yard. Some good news is we're hearing, as of, today, it looks like none of the situation that we're seeing with the wind and dry conditions are worsening. So that's good to hear. However, we obviously haven't gotten any rain since yesterday. So we hope to see some better conditions. We ask you to tune in here, keep it here on WCNC Plus as we get closer to our evening newscasts. We transition over to the evening news at 4 o'clock, where of course we will have more from our weather impact team, not only outlining what we can expect about these conditions, their impacts on the wildfires and the crews out there who are working very, very hard, very busy season it seemed like past several weeks, but also what the weather impacts will be overall. Of course, we've got a big holiday weekend coming up with Easter and potentially some folks outside doing Easter festivities, whether it's sunrise service or you might be doing Easter egg hunts, whatnot. You'll want to stay tuned to get the very latest as far as those weather impacts. Here on Live Impact News and WCNC Plus, of course, we always try to bring you to the latest happening as it's happening. We've got for you right now, Live Look, a feed that we have been keeping an eye on. University of Montana campus. This is Missoula here, as we're seeing yet another rally in that Fighting Oligarchy tour that's being held by Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Looks like we might have either a student or a supporter who's speaking. So let's listen in live right now. And of course, we ask you to keep it here. Anything big and breaking, we'll take you there.
We're ready to get to work. We're ready to get to work doing something about it. So I want to thank every one of you that showed up on a Wednesday for the hope that you bring. And thanks to Bernie and AOC and to local groups like the Montana Public Land Collective for their incredible organizing work. We're going to need a lot more of that. And with that, I'd like to introduce Tracy Stone Manning, a fellow University of Montana alumni, former director of the BLM, and president of the Wilderness Society Action Fund. Thank you all. Thank you, Tracy.
Hello, friends. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. So the Wilderness Society turned 90 this year. It was founded by Bob Marshall. Yeah. He wrote back then that the country needed, quote, spirited people who will fight for the freedom of wilderness. Well, my Montana friends, y'all know a thing or two about bringing spirit. Are you ready to fight for the freedom of the wilderness, the freedom of our public lands? Are you ready to use your voices for the people who work at the Forest Service, the Park Service, the Bureau of Land Management? Let's give it up for our friends and neighbors who do this hard work. You know, the administration is trying to convince you that they are firing all these people to make government more efficient. Yeah. That is not what, or even what it is all about. It's not what they're doing. They are trying to break these agencies so they can say, hey, the federal government can't manage these lands anymore. We need to sell them off. We need to privatize them. That's right. Well, there's one force powerful enough to stop this sell-off in its tracks. You. The people who live here, the people who hike here, fish here, raise their kids here, the people who love this land. Together we, the spirited public, can stop our lands from being sold out to the highest bidder. So are you ready to let Senator Sanders and Representative Ocasio-Cortez hear just how important public lands are to you, to this country? One more serious threat that we need to talk about right now. Congress and the White House are talking about selling off our public lands to pay for tax cuts for the wealthy. I They're back there, they're stitching the budget together, and they know they have to find ways to pay for the tax cuts they want to give away. And they're talking about selling our public lands to do it. So just over a week ago, the Senate had a chance to take the sale of public lands off the table. That vote failed. Right? I mean, can you believe it? The Senate thinks it's a good idea to pay for tax cuts for the rich by selling our
Hey folks, here Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Just quickly wanted to address the feed here. We're working on it. Looks like we might either have some buffering issues or just connection issues. We're going to give it just another moment or two to continue on here. And okay, it looks like we've lost that feed. So once again, you've been watching a snippet of this, what's being called as a fighting oligarchy tour. This is being put on by Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If you've been following this for any length of time, you know that this has been going on from state to state. They've been holding multiple rallies. The premise, the messaging
places. People who love and care about our public lands. That's the majority in the West.
Talking about
that's the majority
in the U.S. who has the power in this country, and by their take, they say it is corporations and oligarchs, so the rich and powerful. Let's listen in here once again.
But a responsibility we carry for the future. My friends, you are those spirited people. You can make your voice heard to keep it public. These are our lands. These are our kids' future. So let's give it up one more time for public lands.
All right, while we await more speakers to come up here, we wanted to turn to a big discussion that we're seeing happening here in the Charlotte area, suburbs area of Charlotte. There's been a lot of talk lately from neighbors in Weddington where there's some developments that have been proposed, and we're seeing some pushback against these developments, various concerns that are being brought to the table by some of these folks who have issues with the plans in place. We're seeing among those concerns how this would impact wildlife. Particularly, we're seeing bald eagles being drawn into the discussion here. And also, stormwater runoff is now more recently being brought to the forefront as a potential concern by some of these folks. I want to bring you now to an extended interview one of our crew members did with folks in the Weddington area about this topic and what they have to say about some of these developments. Let's take a listen now.
How long have you called this house home?
So we bought the very end of May in 2022, and we, when we first got here, it was kind of like a disaster area. The whole property was a mess, the house was a mess, but I fell in love with the area, and I really was excited because it's like we had already bought another house, but we were coming from California all the way across the country and we were bringing a couple little animals with us, and we found this like little oasis here tucked away in beautiful Weddington. So we were super excited to find it because it's kind of like a little hidden gem, and I call it my oasis.
Right after that, you heard that there would possibly be some homes coming up. Talk to me about what your thoughts were when you first found out about this development.
So when we were actually going to make an offer, we saw it was just a big open field. It was all mowed and all nice and clean. And we're like, this is beautiful in itself, but what are they going to do with it? We didn't know if houses were going to go there. We really didn't know what to expect, so we didn't want to buy this property, literally the only thing back here. The whole thing is a half a mile long, all the way up to Hemby Road. And so there was nothing in here at all. And so we thought, you know, we couldn't even find it when we were looking with the realtor to find our place. So we went up, the sales office was actually up on Hemby Road. It was the mother's house who lived up there before. And so she owned like almost 50 acres. And this was her son's house, and it's about 3.5 acres. And he decided not to sell. He passed away, and then the house was for sale in a trust. So it was empty for a couple years. So we went into the sales office, and we started talking to, I believe his name was Richard, that was in the sales office, and just said, you know, what's it going to be? And he goes, oh, that's all conservation land. They're going to turn it into whatever the HOA decides they want to do with it. It's going to be their green space, but we're going to have lots of native plants and vegetation. So we looked on their site plan along with Richard, and he showed us all these beautiful trees kind of drawn out on this plan, and we thought, this is going to be amazing. We don't care what they do, it's going to be gorgeous. We're looking at all this beautiful, lush scenery, and we're like, this is fabulous. We're going to have this great little house back here, beautiful estate homes. We were told all these great homes were going to be built, walking trails, there's a pond over here. We thought this is like heaven. It's like exactly what we were looking for. So we were here, and then they started doing their grading within a couple of months, probably like, I don't know, 5-6 weeks later, we started seeing some movement, and they started like grading the whole upper part of the field. Took us a while to kind of, you know, realize what exactly they were doing, where they were going to be like kind of cutting things out. We just figured we'll be patient and kind of wait, and lots of mud, lots of, you know, issues just getting back here, and we've got a big truck, so I was able to get back here, but otherwise we would have had trouble with our smaller cars getting back here. But we made it work.
Yeah, so you said, you know, at first it was what you thought would be exciting.
Yeah.
What did it turn into?
Unfortunately, it's been kind of a nightmare. So we, when they first started grading up here, they didn't have, we noticed they didn't have silt fences up for a while. We don't really know how any of that works. So we, when they finally did put a silt fence up, they had a big area right above us, and they had a big, kind of a, like I guess they call it a borrow pit. And it was full of water, and there was a whole bunch of big piles of dirt, stockpiles, I guess, that were up on top. And when they were grading, they hit that big thing of water, and it had been, I think it was early 23 before any big rains had come. So we were pretty dry, and it completely wiped out most of our side yard at that time with just tons of water. It came into our pool area, and we went up and we went to speak with them, and they said, oh, we may have knocked something down. There might have been some dirt moved around. We'll check the silt fence. So we just figured it was being handled. We waited for a while. We didn't get any rain for a while. Everything kind of settled down, so we figured it was fixed. By spring, the whole field was completely full of weeds, at least 7 feet tall. You couldn't see our house back here. So we asked for permission if we could mow at least part of it so people could find our house back here. And we got permission from the sales office. But we started getting told that it's conservation land, they can't touch it. And we thought, that's not really what we bought into, but you know, okay, we'll deal with it. If it's just mowed, we'll just mow it, and you know, it'll just be a field again. So we didn't push it too hard. And we, by like early spring, like May, we started putting in a garden and kind of working on the backyard, trying to get like a little pond built, because we had a little tiny like swale that went all the way to the back. And it was just a little minute thing that a little tiny water went back through. We thought, this is going to be beautiful. We'll put a tiny little pond back there that kind of catches it and slows it down. But it was nothing to speak of at all. And by the beginning of June, we started getting a little bit heavier rains, and it started bringing a bunch of mud down there. So we had bought a tractor in, I think it was May, and started just cleaning up the mud, and thought, well, you know, it's to be expected. We haven't had rain for a while. We don't really know how things are going to flow. By July, the first big storm, we literally had whitewater rapids running down our side yard. And so we immediately went to the town, we went to the builders, we talked to the engineers. Everybody, you know, seemed concerned that we had so much water coming down, and started talking to the builders. And unfortunately, here we are now, and we've gotten no help, and still fighting, trying to get something fixed, something addressed, but something changed very obviously. We saw the drone footage of, you know, the house and the property and everything, and there was no sign of any erosion at all. But now it's gotten so severe that we don't feel like we can really stay afloat without some serious, like, you know, efforts put into it to try and figure out where the water's coming from.
Yeah, you guys have had, you said sand, mud, all coming down.
Yeah.
You said probably close to what, around $20,000 worth of repairs you guys have made, or?
On our own, yeah. We had to bring in, I think it was about 80 tons of concrete, crushed concrete and drain rock, and we moved it all in. I've rented excavators and skid steers and moved everything in, regraded the whole side yard, put in French drains, put all new gutters around the house, tried to do everything we possibly could to get every bit of water to move away from the house. And so far we've actually done pretty well, where most of it is now contained on the other side. But we haven't had a really big rain since Helene, and we barely survived that. And the only way we survived that, I think, is from all the work that we did by keeping it kind of at bay. But if we get anything even that big or bigger, I don't think we can survive it, because we cleaned out a little tiny area that was in here, and that actually got water to move away from the one little 15-inch culvert down this way and out that one. And then they came in and graded it again and opened up that, and now all the water is going back into just the one. So we can't protect our property anymore. So it's gotten to the point where we're like pleading for help to just try and see what we can do going forward to just prevent it from completely washing out everything.
Obviously, you spoke at last night's meeting about the other development that's coming forward. A lot of people have grown concerned about development coming through rapidly in Weddington.
Right.
Why was it important for you to go and speak at this meeting, and how does it kind of tie into your space here?
So what we've noticed is there's a lot of development going on. They've got a brand new planner who kind of took on a bunch of stuff that sounded like it was a bit of a mess, and so he got pulled in April, I believe, last year. And tried to kind of clean everything up. But they've still been allowing a lot of new growth, a lot of new building, before they've been able to get a handle on what's really been going on. And so we feel like a pause is in order to kind of catch their breath and just figure out what they need to do to properly oversee it, make sure that the engineers are coming out and addressing the issues, and not allow it to continue, because it is a beautiful area and people are very passionate about it. And you know, we're new here, but we fell in love with it because it's such a beautiful area, and we don't want to see this kind of an issue happen in other subdivisions as well.
Yeah. Now that we're here, you've seen what it's done to your property and some of the challenges you're facing. Obviously, you didn't want to have to go on TV.
No.
What comes next for you guys? Is it pending litigation? Is it like what does it look like for you guys?
That's the absolute last thing we wanted. We really wanted to just get it fixed and figure out, you know, the best way to just protect our property. You know, we weren't asking for much. We're pretty self-reliant and tried to get in and just do as much as we could to just protect our property. We understand, you know, water's water. It's going to do what it's going to do. But when they divert it and they move it so that it actually starts to impact us so severely we can't protect ourselves, then, you know, now we're kind of having to go to you guys, go to an attorney, figure out what do we do going forward, because it devalues our property. Ultimately, it's going to be a problem for everybody. We're worried it's going to continue downstream to other properties behind us. It just needs to be protected and stopped at all costs. And you know, we just don't want to see any other developments have the same issues.
What would you like to see? What would help you guys hopefully clear these issues up?
Get another engineer, get a drone to actually go overhead and really truly survey the area above us. We've been asking for that for months. Every time we've talked to anybody in the town, we've said we'd like to get an independent engineer out, because it seems like things were missed, so we'd like to at least find out what somebody else, another pair of eyes, could like come out and see. We figured that would help a lot. I think just visually you can see that it's not sloping the way the engineer had planned it to. Originally it was supposed to slope from there down to there, and there's actually now, because we think so much water has gone into that corner over there, it's actually made like kind of a depression, and so much sediment is literally throughout the entire field. I think it's like 10 times worse than it was last summer, because that sediment just settles inside there, and it's so hard that nothing can like filter into it. And this used to be all beautiful farmland where the water could actually seep into the ground, and from what we can see, no water is going to go into that ground. So at this point, we're just hoping to get somebody to come out and fix it, figure it out, help us maybe a little bit with our side, but really get this fixed.
All right, so Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, bringing you an extended interview there out of the Weddington area. As we mentioned just a few moments ago, going into this extended interview, that there have been some developments proposed for the Weddington area, and there have been some neighbors that have been speaking out recently about their concerns with these plans, what the impacts might be, either from an environmental or wildlife standpoint, and also, as we just heard with this woman here, stormwater runoff being another concern. If you'd like to learn more about this issue, of course, we have the very latest for you inside the WCNC Charlotte mobile app and on WCNC.com. Meantime, we want to turn to some interesting perspective here on a big topic that is really sweeping the nation as far as interest, and this is regarding the deportations that we've been seeing to El Salvador. So, for folks who have been keeping up with some of the challenges, by challenges I mean legal challenges to actions from the Trump administration, you know that this has been ongoing for quite some time. One of the big cases that we saw with some developments just today involved the president's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act, and we just saw a judge weighing in on that case, saying that there is a threat here of them actually going ahead and issuing criminal contempt orders regarding this, regarding some of these deportations and flights that were sent to El Salvador with folks being deported here and brought to prisons. And there have been some concerns from folks on the side of legal teams representing a plaintiff in this case about due process and whether folks are being given a fair, shake to explain themselves before they are sent overseas. Separately from that, there is a different court case which folks have been paying close attention to nationwide, and that is the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He is the man who is from Maryland, who was sent mistakenly to El Salvador recently, and throughout various court processes, we've arrived to this point now where the Supreme Court has weighed in on an order basically saying that the U.S. must bring this man back to the United States. You might recall not too long ago, the President Donald Trump, sitting down with the president of El Salvador, and essentially the president of El Salvador saying, we're not going to send this man back. And the judge who issued this order saying, bring Abrego Garcia back to the U.S., is saying that she's been asking for information from the Trump administration, basically asking to be shown what steps are you taking to make this happen. And essentially she's saying that she hasn't heard anything. Related to this, we should mention, too, there's a senator from Maryland who apparently just landed today in El Salvador, and he intends to try to see Abrego Garcia in person and just get a look at his condition, because we know that folks who are being held in the specific El Salvador prison are being held incommunicado, which means that they are not allowed to have contact with the outside world. So there are still a lot of question marks about the condition of Abrego Garcia, as well as, of course, what his ultimate fate will be if he's able to be brought back to the U.S. Nevertheless, here, wanted to sit down with a political and legal expert to kind of get some insight on what the courts could do potentially if there are no moves by the Trump administration to bring this man back to the U.S. Are there ways, are there channels or outlets that they can use to try to force this into happening? So take a listen now. We have some of my snippet here with Dr. Michael Bitzer, a professor with Catawba College, weighing in on that. We're here to talk about the developments surrounding Kilmar Abrego Garcia. This was the man from Maryland who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador, is being held in a prison there. And we haven't really seen a lot of movement lately to try to get him back here to the United States, despite a Supreme Court decision basically siding with orders that he be brought back to the U.S. We have Dr. Michael Bitzer here, professor of political science with Catawba College. So we wanted to talk about, really at this point, how the courts would go ahead and enforce this to be done, given that we haven't really seen any, as we mentioned, outward movement to try to comply with the orders.
Correct. And this would be ultimately up to the judge that is overseeing this particular case. The U.S. Supreme Court gave the judge the authority to facilitate the return. She has been questioning government lawyers as to how this process is going to unfold. I think that there is some honest stonewalling going on by the government in this particular case. And so now the question becomes, what can a judge do to compel the government to be able to bring this person back to the United States? I think, there are a variety of things, but the main thing most of us are watching is, will the judge hold the government or government officials in civil contempt, meaning that she could potentially impose fines and or potentially ask for individuals to be jailed. This is bordering on a real constitutional question regarding the power of the courts versus the power of the executive branch.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up just now the fact that a lot of folks are not only honed in on this situation itself with this gentleman from Maryland, but also the fact that this could have potential implications on, basically how our government as we know it is set up to run as far as checks and balances. So you'd mentioned this potential of civil contempt that's being weighed. How does that work? And are there any caveats to this actually playing out?
Right. Well, we have seen in the past judges hold government officials in contempt, hold the government actually in contempt, hold departments, agencies have been held in contempt by previous judges. I think where we are pushing up against the line in terms of a real constitutional issue at hand is, will the other side, the executive branch, recognize and respect the power of the courts? And I think this is where the real question lies. If a judge was to issue a civil contempt against a government official, the judge would have to utilize federal marshals to execute that particular contempt order. And federal marshals fall under the power of the Department of Justice, which is an executive branch agency, but they have been recognized as carrying out the law as determined by the judicial branch. Now, the judicial branch could also utilize a third party to try and execute and enforce this civil contempt. I hope that we do not get to that point in time, but this is raising real issues of whether we are a rule of law-based government or a rule by men based government. And our Constitution is clearly designed to be a rule of law system.
Just have so many questions, as we get down the chain of processes, because you mentioned the marshals, and that's DOJ, and of course we have the person who is heading up that department, an appointee, of course, of the president. So if let's just say marshals don't decide that they're going to comply with this, or there's some way that gets the kibosh, like, what then? What happens after that?
Well, a judge could certainly pursue perhaps a third party, maybe call upon local law enforcement that would not be under the jurisdiction of the federal government and the executive branch to carry out the civil contempt. We're in kind of some entering potentially dangerous waters. I hope that it doesn't get to this point. There will probably be most likely appeals of any contempt order that is imposed, and that could work its way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. But the U.S. Supreme Court in 1911 made it very clear that the power to issue contempt orders and the power to enforce judicial orders is something that is inherently a component of judicial power in this country. And if individuals choose to ignore or to try and circumvent those judicial orders, the question then becomes, do we recognize the power of the U.S. Constitution and the power of the rule of law? I think, this is, we've got a ways to go in all of this, but this is setting up for a potential true constitutional battle and crisis if there is, willingly disregarding a judicial order or an attempt to enforce a judicial order.
Well, clearly, if there is this, you mentioned the 1911 ruling, there is some precedent here for this being maybe questioned, or I'm just kind of curious, in the historical context, when else have we seen this issue come up before?
I think the most prominent one related to ultimately the power of the presidency is the Nixon tapes back during the Watergate event. President Nixon refused to hand over tapes from the Oval Office to both a special prosecutor and ultimately to a Senate committee investigating the Watergate break-in. And that case went up to the U.S. Supreme Court and basically said, in certain circumstances, the president does have the ability to withhold material from the judiciary, but in this kind of situation, it is not the power of the president to ignore a court ruling. And basically what happened was public opinion sided with the court against Nixon, and ultimately he had to resign. I think we are seeing a replay of that mentality of whatever the president says is the law of the land. And that is very dangerous territory for a democratic republic.
Do you think that in this case, public opinion would make a difference? Because, we've been seeing, obviously, more on the Democratic side, because we know there's the senator from Maryland who's now traveled to El Salvador to try to get some answers. But, do you think that that would make a difference if we hear more people speaking up from outside of the administration, or maybe even within the administration, about this case?
I think certainly public pressure and public opinion can weigh some power on the presidency and on the president, but we are in very divided partisan times. We are highly polarized, and the likelihood is public opinion, while it may be against the president, it will not be in overwhelming numbers. It will probably be very tight in terms of who disagrees with the president versus who agrees with the president. And for the most part, what we have seen is public opinion on the Republican side stand firmly behind President Trump. Those who identify as Democrats tend to be in lockstep opposition. And those folks in the middle, the independents, we'll have to see where they fall in terms of this and if it gets the kind of notoriety that calls into question our system of government.
Yeah, very interesting times, and obviously topic for so many folks who are really, really focused on this issue for all of its implications. Dr. Michael Bitzer, we really appreciate your time as always and your insights. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Right, so we were hearing there live Impact News on WCNC Plus. My earlier sit down with Dr. Michael Bitzer, political science professor with Catawba College, really giving some interesting perspective to one of the big topics that we're seeing in national headlines, and that is the deportation efforts that have been underway by the Trump administration and some of the challenges that these efforts have been seeing in the court system. Just to kind of recap a bit more on this Kilmar Abrego Garcia case, we mentioned, of course, that as of last check, the judge in this case, the one who had issued this order saying he must be brought back to the United States, we haven't, apparently, according to this judge, have not heard any response from the Trump administration on any specific steps that they would be taking to try to make this happen. We heard, in that sit down with President Trump and the president of El Salvador, the president of El Salvador saying, you know, that would be preposterous for us to return this man. We've been seeing, you know, folks within the Trump administration, for example, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller saying he is a citizen of El Salvador. How arrogant for folks to suggest that we would tell El Salvador how to handle their citizens and to return him by extension, you know, is, you know, his statement there. However, you know, we're seeing the courts here saying, you know, this was improperly done, you know, in some perspectives. Mr. Abrego Garcia, from what we understand, had an order that was actually keeping him here in the United States. He was seeking asylum from El Salvador, and apparently, some of that stems from his family's background, because we've seen various reporting out there talking about how his father was a police officer in El Salvador, and so they truly thought that there would be retaliation or potential for, you know, gang violence against Abrego Garcia if he ever did return to El Salvador. And of course, now he is there, and he is in a prison being held amongst, you know, what we're understanding are, you know, gang members who are being imprisoned there as well, MS-13, et cetera. So this is definitely a situation, as you heard Dr. Bitzer saying, will, you know, even if we see more movement, you know, on the court side, the legal side, you know, in the short term, this might be playing out long term with the potential for various legal challenges. Keep in mind, as we mentioned, we heard Dr. Bitzer specifically honing in on civil contempt. It is important to note with the criminal contempt developments that we talked about, you know, just a few moments ago, where the judge specifically weighing in on the Alien Enemies Act, you know, the use of that rarely used wartime law. The judge in that case, specifically weighing in on the use of that to deport folks to El Salvador, threatening criminal contempt. That is, you know, somewhat of a different situation from civil contempt. And it does sound like, you know, the charges would inevitably, in that situation, if they went with contempt, would have to come from DOJ, which, as we pointed out, you know, in the sit down with Dr. Bitzer, of course, under the president, ultimately as is a department where he is appointed the head of DOJ. However, we've heard the judge in that specific case saying that he would try to seek a prosecutor who is outside the realm of DOJ to try to pursue this if necessary. Of course, we'll continue to monitor that situation. Meantime, closer to the top of the hour, we brought you a little bit of a peek into this Fighting Oligarchy rally that is underway in Missoula. This is University of Montana campus. And for folks who are not familiar with this tour, because it's a tour, this is being headed up by Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and they have been going, you know, state by state to different cities, drawing some sizable crowds here as they talk about what they say are their concerns with folks who are well-to-do and corporations having a lot of power as they see it here in the United States. So it looks like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is at the podium right now, so we're going to bring you in to listen to some of her remarks. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC+.
Always be the people, the masses who refuse to comply with authoritarian regimes, who are our last and strongest defense of our country and our freedoms. We know that a better world is possible, and we are willing to do something about it. But to get there, we need to be honest about how we got to where we are right now, because this moment didn't come out of nowhere. It has been a long time coming. The destruction of our rights and democracy is directly tied to the growing and extreme wealth inequality that has been building in America for years. It is not a coincidence that billionaires like Elon Musk dumped billions into this election to support Donald Trump. And he sure as hell isn't doing it out of charity. And we saw it it right here, just last election, right here in Montana. The crypto lobby and dark money funneling tons and tons of money trying to buy elections right here in the state of Montana. And time after time, we've seen how our government and laws are more responsive to corporations and lobbyists than to the will of everyday people and voters. And we also know that the agenda of dark money to keep our wages low and to loot our public goods like Social Security and Medicare to give to the rich is deeply unpopular with the people, across party, across background. But just look at what Republicans have been quietly doing in Congress, voting to advance cuts on hundreds of billions of dollars for Medicaid and veterans benefits so that they can take that money and give it to their donors in the form of tax cuts and sweetheart government contracts to companies like SpaceX. And you know who from Montana voted for that, by the way? Both of your senators, Steve Daines and Tim Sheehy. And your House members, Ryan Zinke and Troy Downing. They know that that's not what you want. They know that it is deeply unpopular to chip away at some of the only social safety nets that people have. They know it hurts you, and they know, but they are not there to serve working families in Montana. They are there to serve themselves and the billionaires who pay them. But they know that the only chance that they have to get away with such a deeply unpopular agenda is to try to stoke deep divisions along race, identity, and culture to keep us fighting and distracted. And this has been the big money playbook, not just now, but for decades. And that is why Donald Trump is not an aberration. He is the logical, inevitable conclusion of an American political system dominated by corporate and dark money. And if we are to defeat him, Montana, we must defeat the system that created him. Money in politics is the hands of oligarchy. We are at a crossroads, Montana. We can either have extreme wealth inequality with the toxic division and corruption that it requires to survive, or we can have a fair economy for working people along with the democracy and freedoms that uphold it. Oligarchy or democracy, but we cannot have both. I grew up in a working class family. My mom cleaned houses, and my dad worked on a small business. My parents worked themselves to the bone so that my brother and I could have a shot at the American dream. And for a moment there, it looked like we were going to make it. We had a home. Bills were getting a little less stressful to pay, and I was doing well in public school. And what may have looked like a modest life to others was a dream come true for us. And suddenly, when I was a teenager, my dad was diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer. And after a long fight, we lost him. And my dad actually passed away in September of 2008. Just as the economy crashed in the Great Recession and millions of jobs across the country vanished. It felt like the little world of our family was falling apart just as the larger world was falling apart too. And overnight, my mom was left alone to figure out how to provide and put 2 kids through school, keep our house, pay off medical bills, all on a house cleaner's salary. And that, Montana, is how I became a waitress to help my family make ends meet. Because it was millions of us. Because it was millions of us, innocent working families, who paid the price in the economic crash while the billionaires and thieves who defrauded our financial system got off richer than ever before. And not a single one of them went to jail. That is the story that Republicans mock. Not mine, but all of ours, when they say that a waitress or a working person is unqualified to serve in Congress. But the fact is, Montana, many of us are far more qualified to know what real life is actually like than any of them ever will. Story, not because it is special, but because of how common and disturbingly normal it all is. While the details may differ, so many of us know what it feels like for life to be one bad day, one piece of bad news, one major setback from everything falling apart. And I'm here to tell you today, Montana, that we don't have to live like this anymore. We can.
Okay, folks, Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. You've been watching live here, New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in this Fighting Oligarchy rally that's happening on the campus of University of Montana. This is part of a nationwide tour that she and Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont have been part of over the last several weeks, where they have been trying to spread their message. They say that there is an issue with folks who are rich and powerful and corporate interests getting the power in the United States, and so they are kind of rallying folks there. You can see to some applause here with that messaging. We want to turn our attention right now to a live look at the big board here as we are approaching the closing bell on the day, another day with major indices in the red. So specifically looking live now as the Dow is down about 670 points or so. That's close to 2% on the day. We're also seeing red territory here for S&P 500. That is down close to 2.25%. And then NASDAQ, which is tech heavy, important to note, we'll touch on that in just a few moments. That is down more than 3%. A couple things of note that happened today as we are seeing likely influencing the markets here. On the tech side, as I mentioned, that's of importance. It looks like there are some potential losses that chip makers are going to face. In specific here, NVIDIA, we're seeing set to take possibly a $5.5 billion charge here because it will need a special license to export some of its chips to China. President Trump has said that this is a national security concern, so he is looking to tamp down on some of that technology going abroad. So that is something that certainly investors are watching. We also had, some remarks made by Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who is speaking to the Economic Club of Chicago, talking about how he suspects tariffs will likely put the country back as far as its goals with inflation and economic strength. He talked about how the Fed will, of course, work very hard to try to curb those, but he didn't shy away from saying that there would be impacts. Of course, more on this to come. We're going to turn you now to the news at 4 o'clock.